Attention TBPN!
OpenAI has announced that they have won they achieved the long-standing grand challenge in AI, gold medal level performance on the world's most prestigious math competition, the International Math Olympiad. That's the IMO. So this went up at 12:50 a.m. on July 19th.
Typical timeline for
Yes.
announcements.
So this is basically like Friday night, Saturday morning. You're looking at basically 1 a.m. from Alexander Way. And he shares a picture of a strawberry with a medal with the OpenAI logo on it. Someone also tested, they took this picture, they uploaded it to ChatGPT. What's the fruit in the image? How many R's are in that fruit? And it nailed it. So we are truly AGI has arrived. Also, before we go deeper into that story, we have a new partner, Restream. You saw it in the intro. We're very excited to welcome them as a sponsor of the show. We have been
running on Restream secretly since day one.
It's been our secret to success, and it can be your secret to success.
Yeah, if you support a lot of the Fortune 500 already for all their live streaming infrastructure. So if you need to go live, live with Restream.
And you see OpenAI do streams. That is a thing that has entered the standard comm strategy.
I don't know if XAI is running on Restream. They do stream, and it used to just be the hyperscalers, the Mag 7, the big companies that would do a live stream around an annual event. Then Brian Chesky came out and created Founder Mode and basically said, put all your announcements on an annual release schedule, bundle them all up, have the team celebrate, push to get across the finish line. And part of that is let's throw an event. Part of that is let's get the CEO and the product leaders on stage, tell the community about what we're building, what we've built. And now a lot of people are streaming it. If you're going to stream your stuff, you need Restream. Anyway, go check it out. So Dylan Field, someone who has streamed events, Figma obviously has Config, their dev event annually, and they actually do 2 of them, and those are streamed all over the place, probably using Restream. And Dylan chimes in on the OpenAI news. He says, congrats 2025 IMO winners and participants, including OpenAI, who trained a general purpose reinforcement learning model and achieved IMO Gold. OpenAI team includes these 2 folks, Cheryl and Polynomial Gnome. Fun fact, Polynomial also won the 2025 Diplomacy World Championship as a human. And so people are saying AGI is right around the corner. AJ from Semi-Analysis says, what stands out to me, scaling RL on non-verifiable rewards, likely via rubrics and LLM as judge, thinking and reasoning for several hours at a time for a highly specific task. This is what the $20,000 per month model will look like. And so there were a bunch of interesting things about this. Apparently, there are a few different ways to tackle IMO level math problems. One is using this program called Lean that is a formal math proof verifier. And there's rumors that Google's building their system to leverage that a lot. OpenAI apparently went way down just the text-based LLM reasoning path and had a lot of success there. So even though, as we'll get into in this story, it feels like it's neck and neck, maybe Google was earlier and they just didn't release it faster, and maybe this is a comms thing. There's a whole bunch of different stuff going back and forth. But potentially the more interesting thing is, did they take different technical approaches and get similar results? If they're neck and neck, which one will scale better? Which one will generalize better? There's a whole bunch of different discussions there. Do you want to get into some of the controversy or the pushback? Do you have a post pulled up from someone saying about Google's attempt? Yeah, I mean the whole thing came down to timing. Dennis over at DeepMind was pushing back a little bit, which I could pull up.
Demis Hassabis from DeepMind, the co-founder, and now at Google. It was interesting because we immediately jumped to Polymarket because this whole idea of an AI system beating the IMO, we talked about this with Scott Wu from Cognition months ago, back in April. I found the clip, and he said, I would be very surprised if an AI system this year does not does not actually surpass the IMO. He, of course, is an IMO gold medalist himself, and so it was big to hear from him. Now, the poly market had been sitting at like 20%, and I think we're going to get into like the minutia of like what it means to truly win, because the IMO, like the group that actually puts on the competition, has a different set of rules. They put the questions out, and anyone can go and try and do them. But to actually be awarded a goal for an AI, they said it has to be an open source model potentially. It has to be released in this particular way, and so OpenAI might have used their systems to solve the questions, which is super impressive, but they might not have checked every box to actually technically win the gold from the actual organization. And so Noam says today.
And Demis, to be clear, so he put out a post this morning saying official results are in. Gemini achieved gold medal level in the International Mathematical
Which
Olympiad.
is different than actually getting a gold medal. Right?
He said an advanced version was able to solve 5 out of 6 problems. Incredible progress. And there's a quote in here from the IMO president. He said, we can confirm that Google DeepMind has reached the much desired milestone, earning 35 out of a possible 42 points, a gold medal scored. Their solutions were astonishing in many respects. IMO graders found them to be clear, precise, and most of them easy to follow. You can imagine Juan is just like off on this insane tangent.
There were some fascinating details around how they solved them.
Demis shared, he said, by the way, as an aside, we didn't announce on Friday because we respected the IMO board's original request that all AI labs share their results only after the official results had been verified by independent experts and the students had rightly received the acclamation they deserved. And so you can imagine, somebody was saying, I don't know how real this was, somebody was saying that they were making a claim that like Google needed time to like have the comms team to sign off, but it seemed more likely that the original plan was, hey, let's wait and announce this when the IMO board actually comes out.
The analogy feels like you're a super fast sprinter. You go to the Olympics and you run a 100-meter dash that's incredibly fast in the parking lot. Like, you're not in the stadium, but everyone's like, wow, that guy's fast.
He's hauling.
He's hauling. It's very impressive, but
definitely
you still don't.
Potentially the fastest man on earth.
And ideally, you paid for the parking pass to get into the stadium, and it's like maybe Google and OpenAI were both running 100-meter dashes in the parking lot. One of them had paid for like, enough parking spaces to make it completely clean. OpenAI was just kind of showing up with a buddy and being like, I'm sprinting. That's the vibe I'm getting. But they're both in the parking lot. Like, neither of them are in the actual stadium at this point. But who knows? They might be soon. There's some questions about do they have to open source or whatever. So Noam Brown says, we achieved a milestone that many considered years away, gold level performance. Gold medal, of course, he's saying gold medal level performance. Like, that's very critical. It's not we got a gold medal. It's that we exhibited gold medal level performance. Typically for these AI results, like in Go, Dota, poker, diplomacy, researchers spend years making an AI that masters one narrow domain and does little else. But this isn't an IMO specific model. It's a reasoning LLM that incorporates new experimental general purpose techniques, which would be very exciting because you could apply an IMO level.
John, hold up that stack of posts for the audience.
Oh, we got 150 posts today. It's going to be a quick stream, people. It's going to be a quick stream, but buckle up. So what's different? We developed a new technique that makes LLMs a lot better at hard to verify tasks. IMO problems were the perfect challenge for this. Proofs are pages long and take experts hours to grade. Compare that to AIME, which is another math exam, where answers are simply an integer from 0 to 999. So you can verify them really, really quickly. Also, this model thinks for a long time. O1 thought for seconds, deep research for a minute. This one thinks for hours. Importantly, it's also more efficient with its thinking, and there's a lot more room to push the test time, compute, and efficiency further. Now, what's interesting is like I think these questions go up, and then you have like I think the students get like 2 4.5 hour segments. So there's like there's a world where like the AIs can do it, but just not as fast as humans, which would be very interesting. I don't exactly know how close they are. So Noam says, where does this go? As fast as recent AI progress has been, I fully expect the trend to continue. Importantly, I think we're close to AI substantially contributing to scientific discovery. There's a big difference between AI slightly below top human performance versus slightly above. This was a small team effort. He took a
right
research
now
idea.
the discovery that AI is doing is talking with somebody who is potentially schizophrenic and convincing them that they've figured out how to move faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
So
there's so many accounts of that. It's getting crazy. I posted ChatGPT agent, go win me an IMO gold medal and then update my resume.
don't make mistakes.
But have you actually looked at any of the IMO questions ever?
No.
I don't even know where to start. Like it's all stuff that
it's one call away for us though. We just text Scott.
Yeah. Tyler, have you ever looked at IMO questions?
No, but I'm looking at them right now. It's like pretty brutal.
Would you know where to start?
Tyler, if you can get 2 out of 6 right before the end of the stream, we'll buy you a house.
Well, that's the thing. He's just going to be able to ask ChatGPT now. And we
One
won't
shot
know.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
no
to
tool use.
No tool use.
Tyler.
Got to qualify that.
Nick has the comment about DeepMind. DeepMind has also
Tyler has
won,
another challenge today.
He
by
does.
The way.
We will introduce that in just a few minutes. DeepMind has also won IMO Gold, but they haven't announced it yet. By the way, confirmed. Congratulations. Beat us.
They
to
did
the
this morning.
They did. Yeah, they confirmed it this morning.
And so it's been interesting to see the reaction to this. Gary Marcus is on X saying all the tech bros this morning thinking that AGI has been achieved because some parentheses insanely expensive new form of LLMs can now match top high school students on one specific task. It's almost cute. So really just ripping into the entire AI community. But Will Depew comes in and says he's on leave right now, taking a little summer holiday.
Yes.
He says, guys, stop using expensive as a disqualifier. Capability per dollar will drop 100x a year. The 3K task Arc AGI 80% could probably be $30 if we cared to optimize it. Repeat after me. All that matters is top line intelligence. All that matters is top line intelligence. So again, everybody's focused on sort of raw capabilities, not super focused on efficiency, especially for projects like this where they're not necessarily, rolling this out in mass.
Yeah. And you know where a lot of these IMO gold medalists go to work?
I do, John.
Ramp.com. Time is money. Save both. Easy to use corporate cards, bill payments, accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. Ramp is amazing. So the timeline was in turmoil over the Gary Marcus post, and they went back and forth, and he finally admitted it at the end. He said, that's impressive. So it started with a post by Daniel Litt. He says, huge congrats to OpenAI for their IMO Gold. I don't find it too surprising that an AI tool was able to achieve this. See below, though I'd sort of lost hope the last few days. But I'm pretty surprised it was an LRM with no tool use. So it didn't have Python. It didn't have web search. It didn't have all the things that you could imagine would kind of allow you to speed things up or kind of be a shortcut that would put it in a different category. There was always a question about with the when the AIs were playing video games, like computers have wall hacks. Like they can sometimes see the map without the fog of war. They can see it's very different to get perfect data on where every character is on the map and be able to make decisions based on that, as opposed to looking at pixels and having to move the screen over there to see if you're being invaded on the left flank, right? And so there was always this yes, if you gave a computer the raw access, that's not quite, it's impressive, but it's not quite a level playing field. And it's basically the same thing as being well, the other folks don't get a calculator and you get a calculator. Is it that impressive? But this was very much an even playing field, it seems like. So Mel Gibson 2.0, great name, says you are not surprised that they have figured out a way to make the model learn in very hard to verify domains in a fuzzier reward space. It also appears that the same reasoning model was the one used in the AT Coder competition, showing that it can generalize across domains. Daniel comes back and says, I don't think we really know what they figured out yet. I'll keep my powder dry until we know more. Mel Gibson says, go read Noam Brown's thread on the model if you haven't already. He says, and remember, Noam Brown says this isn't an IMO specific model, and that's a very important thing because there's a ton of situations where you can go and RL on a specific task and it gets really, really good at it, but then you try and get it to do anything else and it's not that great. Yeah. And so Daniel Litt says, yeah, I read it. Gary Marcus says, chimes in from the rafters because he's not in this chat yet, but he has entered the chat. He says, I read it too. That's pretty vague. Are we sure that no tools were called? Gary Marcus then chimes in again, says IMO Gold, does no tools mean no use of Python, code interpreter, etc.? Daniel Litt says, that's how I understand it. And then Gary Marcus tags in Polynomial, Noam Brown, and also Alex Way and says, can you confirm that the IMO Gold was achieved without using Python or code interpreter or similar? And then Gary Marcus says, humans don't use external tools in the IMO competition. I'm just trying to understand what the system is. That's how we do science. Daniel Litt, and at some point, whoever was trying to dunk on Gary Marcus just deleted their account. So it just says, this post is from an account that no longer exists. Daniel Litt shows Cheryl on the OpenAI team saying the model solves these problems without tools like Lean, which is a math verifier, or coding. It just uses natural language. It also only has 4.5 hours to answer our earlier question. We see the model reason at a very high level, trying out different strategies, making observations from examples, and testing hypotheses. And Gary Marcus says, that's impressive. So, Gary Marcus, you got to fill out the apology form, bro. You got to fill out the deep reinforcement learning apology form. What was the reason for your behavior? No one told me Alex Way was training the model.
Mercury was in retrograde.
I don't know ML. And then one of them is Gary Marcus convinced me it was fake because Gary Marcus was famously said deep learning is hitting a wall. Like this particular paradigm will not scale. You have to do symbol manipulation, which was like kind of his bet, encode different relationships between ideas in the model. There were a bunch of different debates over there, and he's gone back and forth on that. He's not as much of like a deep reinforcement learning hater as some people think. But that's his brand at this point. So anyway, more on the drama between DeepMind and OpenAI. DeepMind got a gold medal at the IMO on Friday afternoon, but they had to wait for marketing to approve the tweet until Monday. OpenAI shared theirs first at 1 a.m. on Saturday and stole the spotlight. In this game, speed is greater than bureaucracy. Miss the moment, lose the narrative. So that's one interesting take. We'll see exactly. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of that. I mean, certainly culturally, OpenAI loves to release information before Google. Whatever Google's like next big
and they're
IO
playing to win.
thing,
Remember after what did they release after the DeepSeek moment?
Deep research. And then
so if you're typing deep and you were looking for an AI product.
And then Google had IO. And then
OpenAI
IO. This is like the day before
with Johnny Ive.
With Johnny Ive. So anyway, you'll love to see it. All's fair in love and war, I guess. I don't think this crosses any lines.
Warfare.
Yeah,
violence.
And this is the benefit of having a bunch of posters on your team, I guess. Noam Brown says it takes us a few months to return the experimental research frontier into a product, but progress is so fast that a few months can mean a big difference in capabilities. And this is from July 18th. So all the models underperform humans on the new IMO questions, and Grok 4 is especially bad on it, even with best of N selection.
Somebody was accusing Grok 4 of training on the problem set.
For IMO?
No.
Oh, for something else? For the other benchmarks. I mean, benchmark hacking is like a thing that happens all over the place. That's why we need like hidden benchmarks. That's the whole thing of ArcAGI that we will talk about. We talked about Will Depew saying, guys, stop using expensive as a disqualifier. Terrence Tao, one of the most goated mathematicians of all time, digs in a little bit and is adding his perspective as a world-renowned mathematician. He says, it is tempting to view the capability of current AI technology as a singular quantity. Either a given task X is within the ability of current tools or it is not. However, there is in fact a very wide spread in capability, several orders of magnitude, depending on what resources and assistance gives the tool and how one reports the results. One can illustrate this with a human metaphor. I will use the recently concluded IMO as an example. Here, the format is that each country fields a team of 6 human contestants who are high school students, led by a team leader, often a professional mathematician. Over the course of 2 days, each contestant is given 4.5 hours on each day to solve 3 difficult math problems, given only pen and paper. That is crazy. No communication between contestants or with the team leader during this period is permitted, although the contestants can ask the invigilators, for clarification. This is like some math term I don't even know. For clarification on the wording of the problems. The team leader advocates for the students in front of the IMO jury during the grading process.
Invigilators are also known as exam proctors.
Okay, proctors. Okay. So, yeah, they can ask the people that are running the test, hey.
We got to start working Invigilator into.
For sure.
We should probably have a show.
We should hire some.
Like just an Invigilator too.
For sure.
We should have at least one on staff.
So the team leader advocates for the students, but is not involved in the IMO examination directly. The IMO is widely regarded as a highly selective measure of mathematical achievement for a high school student to be able to score well enough to achieve a medal, particularly a gold medal or a perfect score. This year, the threshold for gold was 35 out of 42, which corresponds to answering 5 of the 6 questions perfectly. Even answering one question perfectly merits an honorable.
Basically a B, gets you gold.
Yeah,
it's that hard.
They're that hard. But consider what happens to the difficulty of the Olympiad if we alter the format in various ways. First, one gives the students several days to complete each question rather than 4.5 hours for 3 scenarios. To stretch the metaphor somewhat, consider a sci-fi scenario in which the student is still only given 4.5 hours, but the team leader places the students in some sort of expensive and energy-intensive time acceleration machine in which months or even years of time pass for the students during this exam. Before the exam,
Ben might have put us in one of these because we go live and then it's 4 hours later.
Yeah, time acceleration. Yeah, it's wild. 2, before the exam starts, the team leader rewrites the questions in a format the students find easier to work with. 3, the team leader gives the students unlimited access to calculators, computer algebra packages, formal proof assistance, textbooks, or the ability to search the internet. Sounds like that didn't happen. The team leader has the 6-student team work on the same problem simultaneously, communicating with each other on their partial progress and reported dead ends. The team leader gives the students prompts in the direction of favorable approaches and intervenes if one of the students is spending too much time on a direction they know to be unlikely to succeed. Next, each of the 6 students on the team submits solutions, but the team leader selects only the best solution to submit to the competition, discarding the rest. Last, if none of the students on the team obtain a satisfactory solution, the team leader does not submit any solution at all and silently withdraws from the competition without their participation ever being noted. Oh, so that could have happened. It didn't in this case, but in each of these formats, the submitted solutions are still technically generated by the high school contestants.
Going back to the parking lot example, it's like if you can go run the race in the parking lot. And then if you don't run as fast as you hoped, it's like, well, I wasn't in the I wasn't
racing. I was just going for a jog.
I was just warming up. I like to be surrounded by excellence.
Yeah, don't worry. That is the true one, because if they'd missed, they'd probably be like, what? The IMO is this weekend? We're working on agents. Like, what are you talking about? Like, have you seen our DIUs? Like, get out of here. To each of these formats, the submitted solutions are still technically generated by the high school contestants rather than the team leader. However, the reported success rate of the students in the competition can be dramatically affected by such changes in format. A student or team of students who might not even reach bronze medal performance in the normal competition under standard test conditions might instead reach gold medal performance under some of the modified formats indicated above. So in the absence of controlled test methodology that was not self-selected by the competing teams, one should be wary of making various apples to apples comparisons between the performance of various AI models on competitions such as the IMO or between such models and the human contestants. Yeah, the question is it seems like of those, not many were actually violated by the way OpenAI and Google attacked this.
Well, this was before. This was an immediate reaction before I think there was
more details came out.
Of details, that we've been covering.
This was 3 p.m. on Saturday, but 3 p.m. later.
Well, Rune has a good post.
This is a great one.
He says, my bar for AGI is an AI that can learn to run a gas station for a year without a team of scientists collecting the gas station data set. It's a great post.
The world isn't ready for gas station bench.
We can run an AI as long as we can run a gas station as long as we have, a perfect, data set.
And that's like the way
on how gas stations operate.
Yeah, as soon as we place the goals somewhere, we nail that goal, and then we have to move the goalpost. Shows.
This is so good.
This is a great graphic.
Great picture. So Thomas Wolfe says, my bar for AGI is an AI winning a Nobel Prize for a new theory it originated. It's just an image of a team moving the goalpost.
I do like how consistent Tyler Cowen is on AGI. He's like, my bar was the Turing test. We passed that, so I have to call it like it is.
Yeah,
and I'm not moving the goalpost.
I think he's
notorious
going to look very
goalpost
smart
maintainer.
for that.
Yeah.
In the fullness of time.
I mean, I think it's okay to be like, yeah, we achieved AGI.
It's just tough when you achieve something.
Now there's something
and
new.
It's cool, but not immediately
dramatically
massively
impactful.
Transformative.
But you have to imagine that there was the same thing when people were like human flight, and then the Wright brothers go and do it, and people are like, great, so like I can hop on a Southwest flight in an hour to go to San Francisco from LA, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like LA is like, a couple trains and like some people, with orange groves. And it's like, it takes a long time for the infrastructure to get built out. Like now a lot of these AI tools, they do build on top of the internet and on top of technology that we have rolled out. But like at a certain point, like the UI matters, the economics of these different tools matters. You can't, it might not be economical for a company to release an AI tool that costs $20,000 to inference just to get you the weather or do 2+2. And so all of these things take time to roll out. And that's why we're kind of in this like slow takeoff scenario. It feels like, I don't know. Massive post from Fiji Simo, the CEO of applications at OpenAI. She is outlining what her plan is basically. And it's very, very interesting post. So so Fiji Simo is an absolute boardroom general. Give me the Ashton Hall when Fiji Simo
Instacart.
Yes, Fiji Simo. OpenAI and Spotify board of directors positions, huge runs at eBay, Facebook, and Instacart. Now she's the CEO of applications at OpenAI. Today she outlined how she sees OpenAI's products having the biggest impacts. High level, 6 things: knowledge retrieval, health, creative expression, economic freedom, time, and support. And those are kind of getting, I think, more abstract, more vague as they go along. But it's interesting. They map pretty closely to my experience. Knowledge retrieval, I use it as a Google replacement for a lot of things. Yep. I use deep research as a knowledge retrieval product. I also use it a little bit as WebMD replacement, not a ton, but I've seen a lot of people use that. But I do ask it for advice around health, fitness, recommendations for supplements, all sorts of different stuff. Often I'll just go there and say, what type of creatine does Andrew Huberman recommend? And it'll just one-shot it.
Complex medical.
Fortunately, I haven't been in one of those situations recently, but if I did run into one of those situations, I would definitely go to it. And
it is interesting because previously when people were trying to understand maybe a small health issue they're having, they would go do a Google search, add Reddit to it, and then they would look through the comments. And the comments would provide kind of like context on the symptoms or whatever they were dealing with. But you could technically leave a comment, but I think the majority of people wouldn't want to post about that. And so the fact that OpenAI has all that Reddit data, you can get that same type of data, but then you can kind of ask a number of follow-up questions, which is very cool, very powerful. I'm certain that people are probably misusing it, maybe reading too much into the results. But again, the idea, I think for a long time, doctors that would say, don't look on Google. You're just going to stress yourself out. And then you go into the appointment room and they're over there on the equivalent of Dr. Google.
Totally. It's nothing new. People used to go to WebMD and like the meme was like you go to WebMD and no matter what you type in, it says like could be cancer, like could
Yeah.
be like the worst possible thing, but it might just be a cold and maybe you should just take some Advil.
Yeah.
But like for whatever reason, WebMD felt the need to like kind of give
Yeah.
you the full picture and all the possibilities. And then they of course say like, go consult an expert or talk to your doctor. So, but yes, I definitely see it replacing that type of health experience. Also, I'm using it as a Photoshop replacement a fair amount of time. If I need to just quickly generate an image, quickly generate something that I would have normally gone to a 3D rendering program or Photoshop and kind of created a collage to kind of
Huge
illustrate an
tailwind for
idea.
the meme industrial complex.
Huge tailwind. Still a lot to work out there. I do find that sometimes when I go to images in ChatGPT, I'm going back and forth on the prompt for 10 minutes. And I'm like, I could have just done this with traditional tools. So it's not perfect, but when it gets it, it's so amazing. And the final product often looks a lot more cohesive than what I would get if I was like collaging and like the shadows didn't match and there were like rough edges and stuff. So certainly great there. The last three are a bit more vague. We'll have to read into those, but OpenAI is set up to win pretty big in all of these categories. So semi-analysis clocks ChatGPT's share of queries at 71%. Meta is in second at 12%, and that's with billions of users on Meta products. And so OpenAI is certainly running away with consumer. So there's this question of like, it feels like the rest of consumer AI plays will be, I would say like horizontal in the sense that it won't be a new app on your home screen. Meta won't have Meta
Unless
AI as a home
OpenAI
screen app.
Loses their lead and becomes the Yahoo of AI, but that doesn't feel likely.
Yeah, it feels tough. Like, why did Yahoo lose to Google? It's because there was an entirely new paradigm in PageRank. Like a new algorithm emerged. Sure, if that happens from SSI or superintelligence, Meta superintelligence, like there could be a leapfrog moment. But so far, they've been pretty good at staying near the frontier to the point where it's like, okay, Google got him on this one or Grok got him on this one today. But there hasn't been a time when I've been like, okay, like there is a dramatic difference in the results such that it's worth it for me to go over. There was that moment for Claude for a little bit. Everyone was like, Claude's way better. I went over and used Claude for a bit. And then I went back to OpenAI just because the product was better and had more of an ecosystem.
Product lead is very real.
Yeah, I was thinking about this. Like if you played out a hypothetical scenario and you went and you had, the keys to OpenAI HQ, you went and you exfiltrated all the code, everything, got an app into the App Store, Jordy GPT. You have the exact same model, the exact same inference, the exact same UI, everything. Could you win? Because people would say, well, it's
There's
not
real
better,
brand,
so I'm not going to switch.
We live on a part of the internet where people are constantly debating the merits of the leadership teams and the approaches and the philosophies. But then downstream, you have approaching 1 billion users that are just like, I like the product. I use it a lot.
Yeah. And so even if you ran a Super Bowl ad saying like, we have a product that's exactly as good as ChatGPT. It is feature for feature the same.
parity.
People would be like, but I already have it installed. You're asking me for 2 minutes to uninstall this and reinstall the new one, and then I don't get any benefit. I wouldn't do it, even if you match my even if you match my capabilities. You got to leapfrog.
It's funny. So Jason Fried had a great post relevant yesterday. He said feature parity is just another way to say we don't need to exist. So if you come out and you're so good at what you do that you can create as good of a product as OpenAI, models that are as good, you still don't need to exist. And so that is the challenge for anyone competing.
Let me tell you about ramp.com. Time is money, save both, easy to use corporate cards, bill payments, accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. Go to ramp.com. Really quickly. It feels like the rest of consumer AI plays will be horizontal. There won't be a new AI app for Meta that really takes off. Instead, AI will improve everything Meta does across Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, Quest, etc. And I was thinking about the initial takeoff of Facebook. The other tech companies, they didn't really seriously get to compete in social networking. Like Google Plus never really took off. I guess Microsoft bought LinkedIn, and that's kind of a niche social network, very profitable business, great business, but it is like its own thing. It doesn't directly compete. But graph databases and the idea of storing efficiently connections in graph networks like Facebook kind of pioneered, that became really widespread and was used all over the place.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Google search, like this page rank, just better search algorithms, those wound up manifesting in better search in all sorts of products. And so when a new company comes out and builds, a whole paradigm, or they break through in terms of front end development or database development or some sort of structure, like it winds up improving everyone. And so I think AI will have these like horizontal benefits all over the ecosystem. And I think it makes a ton of sense that Meta's investing so much in superintelligence, but it's not, I don't really think the narrative should be like they need to play catch up to ChatGPT. I think it's more like they just need to implement LLMs in every single crack in all of their different systems, like they do with great databases, great infrastructure. I'm not sure. We'll see.
I still think there's. I mean, remember Meta made some early experiments of making digital clones of big celebrities on Instagram.
Yeah.
I still think they'll take more shots on goal around companionship.
Yeah.
Will they go Grok waifu mode? No, I don't think they want that revenue line, but there's a bunch of other ways in which they could kind of go after that market that I don't even think. I mean, ChatGPT is such an interesting product because it's designed to be a functional tool around knowledge retrieval, creative expression, just unlocking consumer surplus, giving people access to expertise, et cetera. And the way in which people are using it as a companion is sort of not the sort of default. It's not like you name your ChatGPT, right? People will give it a name. Yeah. But
it doesn't really stick.
Yeah.
Like it's certainly not baked into the UI in the way that it could be.
Yeah.
I know people do talk to it.
And so again, I've said it before, but as ChatGPT user hours or just user minutes still, but as they're ticking up, I do think Zuck will look at that and say, I want some of that action.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe some of that, but I still think some of that happens inside of the platforms. I don't
not
know
necessarily a net new app.
It would be very difficult, and Meta has yet to really do it. WhatsApp an acquisition, Instagram an acquisition, but Stories massively successful within Instagram.
Yeah.
And so I would expect, I agree with your take that I think there's an opportunity for a lot of AI stuff to live within those apps. And then also just on the monetization side, like they're in a very unique space where they can give great products away for free, but they can't be charged an inference cost to another company. And so if they have their own open source model that they can inference very cheaply, they can give it away for free, and then they leverage their massive ad network. So let's go through what Fidji Simo over at OpenAI is building. So in a few weeks, I'll be joining OpenAI as CEO of applications. We've all been waiting for this moment. Helping to get OpenAI's technology into the hands of more people around the world. I've always considered myself a pragmatic technologist, someone who loves technology not just for its own sake, but for the direct impact it can have on people's lives. That's what makes this job exciting, since I believe AI will unlock more opportunities for more people than any other technology in history. If we get this right, AI can give everyone more power. And so she has a fantastic career, eBay, Facebook, then Instacart, and is now at OpenAI.
And she was heavily involved in building the ads engine at Instacart, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously at Facebook as well. So on knowledge, she says, empowerment starts with understanding the world around us and our place in it. When we have the right knowledge at the right time, we can make better decisions, advocate for ourselves, and change our path. But for most of history, access to expert level knowledge has been limited to those with more resources. I mean, even after the invention of the printing press, like you still had to be in a big city that had a library to go check out a book for free. Still had to have the time to do it. And certainly buying every book and being able to index it was very expensive and difficult. Now it's even easier. It's already working. People who use AI tutors learn twice as much as they do from human ones, and the gains are even bigger compared to learning in a traditional classroom. In a 2024 OpenAI study, 90% of users said ChatGPT helped them understand complex ideas more easily. I agree with that. On health, she says, personally, I'm most excited about the breakthroughs that AI will generate in healthcare. A few years ago, I faced a complex and poorly understood chronic illness. Oh, that's sad. And it became painfully clear just how fragmented and inaccessible the healthcare system can be. Even with access from some of the best doctors in the world, I found myself acting as a connector, piecing together insights from multiple specialists who weren't speaking to each other. I actually had a friend who got a very, very rare form of cancer and did all of the research pre-ChatGPT, actually downloaded all the frontier science and all the different papers, figured out that it was this one very rare condition, found the expert, went to that expert. He was like, yep, you have this thing. I'm the only one that studies this thing. I'm going to help you. Did the surgery, saved your life. Crazy.
I had an issue. I was 18, traveling. I was surfing in South America. There was flash flooding. I was in this tiny town. I got a antibiotic-resistant staph infection from that.
Oh, that's bad.
And then was getting repeated infections over the next year. And the doctor kept prescribing antibiotics that were such an intense antibiotic that doctors won't, it's like a soap, they won't touch it without gloves on.
Whoa.
And they use it before surgeries. And they just said, use this twice a day over your entire body. And I kept having issues. Oof. And eventually found in a Reddit community that was just obsessed over this issue. And the thing that fixed it was avoiding gluten.
Yeah.
It actually just fixed everything.
That's so crazy. Yeah,
and I just imagine if I was even now, if I was dealing with that issue, I would have been able to, I would have just been able to talk with ChatGPT about it. They would be able to surface all that kind of thing, build a picture of it. So,
very interesting. Let me tell you about Restream. One live stream, 30 plus destinations, multi-stream,
That's right.
And reach your audience wherever they are. We use
the
Restream.
backbone of this show.
So she closes out health saying, AI can explain lab results, decode medical jargon, offer second opinions, and help patients understand their options in plain language. It won't replace doctors, but it can finally level the playing field for patients, putting them in the driver's seat of their own care. Very excited for that. And also, that feels like something, I don't know, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see if that manifests itself in, all of this is will there be any fracturing in the actual product? Because right now, all the fracturing that's happening in the ChatGPT product is in what model you're using. You're using agent or deep research. But so far, all the different
they're all chats.
Products, they're all chats, and none of them say this one's for health, this one, and I'm in a safe health territory. It's that's all driven by the prompt. I would imagine that over the long term, everything's driven by the prompt. I would love to be able to go to ChatGPT and just say, hey, quickly, what's the population of Canada? And it knows to use 4.0 for that. And then if I say, hey, I want you to give me a full report on the history of Canada, give me a deep research report, I wouldn't need to select it. It would just know from the prompt.
And you could go to ChatGPT, agent, help me annex Canada.
And then it just goes and starts. Yeah, don't mistake. And then it just keeps working. So the third one, she says, creative expression. I believe we're all born creators and that the ability to imagine something and make it real is a big part of what makes us human. The problem is that our ability to express that creativity is often limited by our skill sets. Completely agree. I can't draw at all. Not everyone has the resources, time, or training to paint, write, compose, or build. When I imagine the future, it often comes to me in images I paint in my spare time. But we gotta find some Fiji Simo originals. Hang them on the wall. This is interesting.
Bull market.
This is lore. But the images in my head are much more realistic and complex than what I am able to paint today. Now AI is collapsing the distance between imagination and execution. With AI and image generation, I can prompt and iterate until the output matches the complexity and realism of the vision in my head. Unless it's a Where's Waldo. We got to solve the Where's Waldo challenge.
We do.
It's coming for sure. The Where's Waldo eval for image generation. Today, nearly 1 in 3 Gen Z users say AI tools have helped them express themselves in ways they never could. So this is another fun, viral, obvious, valuable, we know it, we love it. Everyone's using ChatGPT for creative expression.
Well, yeah, and this presents a massive challenge if you are a GPT wrapper that's trying to go compete in the creative expression space, because you have to. It's not enough to generate a cool image or generate a meme. It used to be that if you could do text well, that was maybe an advantage that people would use your product. But ChatGPT image generation has just gotten better and better and better. It's fantastic. if you haven't played around with it much, drop your group chat, the profile pictures of your most popular group chat, put them in there and say make them all GigaChads.
Yes.
And then you can share that back.
Bodybuilders.
Yeah.
For
yeah.
sure.
Well, you start with generating an image in ChatGPT. Then when you're ready to go pro, you move over to Figma. Figma.com. Think
That's
bigger,
right.
build faster. Figma helps design and development teams build great products together. You can get started for free at Figma.com. Fourth, she says, economic freedom. When people can independently create and capture value, they gain power over their own economic destiny. But starting a company isn't easy. The average cost to start a small business in the US is around $30,000, an impossible threshold for most aspiring entrepreneurs. And until recently, building a product or launching a service required technical knowledge, especially coding. That was a problem for hundreds of millions of people who had ideas for tools, apps, platforms, etc., that could have made an impact, but they didn't have the technical skills to bring them to life. The classic ideas guy, I just need a programmer to build it for me. Well, now you can vibe code it. AI now gives the people the power to turn ideas into income, no matter their age, credentials, or zip code. A single person can now brainstorm, prototype, market, and launch a product with tools they control themselves. A 2024 Shopify report showed AI-enabled solopreneurs launched businesses 70% faster than peers without AI tools. I've seen it with my 9-year-old daughter, who decided one day she wanted to be a party planner for kids' birthdays.
Let's give it up for
It's amazing. What a great story. In one weekend, using AI tools, she created a fully functional website showcasing her party ideas, shared it with her peers, and started taking on clients. Amazingly,
Smart.
my husband and I didn't have to help her, but we did have to intervene before the confetti cannons were ordered. That's a
Ben,
great story.
good reminder, we should get some confetti cannons.
We do need confetti cannons.
Except last time when we had confetti cannons at YC Demo Day,
Yes.
my eyes were in pain
So
for
you need
days
goggles.
and days and days. We need goggles next
Days?
time. Because, there was so much dust
There was
in
a lot of dust.
the confetti cannon.
We left it all on the field.
We did.
In the future, people will be able to build new things without waiting for permission, capital, or credentials. This will, of course, mean a meaningful shift in the workforce. Companies will hire fewer people, so you get more smaller companies. That seems pretty cool.
Yeah,
Very
my
exciting.
first real company, skateboard company,
Yeah.
J-Man Designs. Probably, I don't know if I would have done it if my lovely mother wasn't a graphic designer.
Helped out.
And I needed a logo to
Yeah.
print on the decks that I was getting made. And I just would sit with her and tell her, do this, do that, do this, do that. And it's pretty cool that you can now just talk through that process in natural language and
Yeah.
how many more people can
It
do
was
that.
pretty crazy you ran a skateboard company without doing proper SOC 2 compliance.
I know.
You
I
should have got on
really
Vanta. Automate compliance, manage risk, prove trust continuously. Vanta's trust management platform takes the manual work out of your security and compliance process.
Huge alpha
and
just
replace-
starting an extreme sports company and saying, look, none of our competitors are serious
Yeah.
enough about this to
take
to
it
really
seriously.
take compliance and security
We take
as
it
seriously as you should.
Yeah, I mean, I do think for kids especially, I mean, the ability to just use AI tools fully to go and solve problems, and it's almost like your town's McKinsey consultant. I remember I had an early job of just like scanning photos for someone. They needed a whole bunch of photos scanned. It was like pretty manual labor, but like I actually wasn't that good at it. I kind of messed it up. There was like too much like. The scanner wasn't configured properly, so I had to redo a lot of them. It was a learning process, but it's probably the first one of the first
I feel
small
like
jobs I had.
the only thing that's maybe boring and repetitive that I can imagine you doing is the bench press.
Oh, yeah.
It should basically the same every time, but
Yes.
but yeah, those type of tasks I've always struggled with. But
Yeah.
I don't know that we're at a point. I still think if you were using I think that job still exists.
I think it does. I think there are bigger companies where you can just like send in a ton of stuff and they'll just professionally scan it for you. But
Yeah.
they're pretty expensive, I think. So I think the kids still have some alpha if your opportunity cost is low enough.
Yeah.
as
Those
many
after-school hours.
kids are.
Fifth, she says, time. Regaining control over your time is one of the most liberating, empowering shifts a person can experience. The ability to control how you spend your time is often what separates people who feel in charge of their lives from people who feel overwhelmed by them. Wealthy people who have always bought back their time by hiring personal assistants, household staff, private tutors, chefs, and more, building full infrastructures to reduce friction in their lives. Meanwhile, the average household spends nearly 20 hours a week on domestic work, logistics, and errands. While leading Instacart, I saw firsthand how technology can shift perceptions and behaviors around time. In 2012, the idea of paying someone to shop for your groceries felt like a luxury, something reserved for the ultra wealthy. But with the right product design, logistics, and pricing, we made it accessible and indispensable for everyday families. Today, the Instacart user base mirrors the U.S. population, with millions of families getting hours back each week to spend on higher value activities.
The question is, will OpenAI build a gig worker network where when your agent runs into a wall and needs somebody in the real world to accomplish a task, will you be able to delegate tasks like that? Feels like a stretch, but I don't know. They could plug into the Uber network or any of these other networks.
Yeah, maybe they already have like an Instacart integration, so maybe they will rely on other gig work platforms to solve those problems and actually handle that side. And they will stay in the full
like the
software
package delivery where you can get an Uber to just pick something up and take it across town.
Yep.
You could imagine that being integrated.
Yeah, I mean, there's a host of services and companies and APIs for shipping, mailing, moving things around, hiring someone. I mean, in theory, you could hire a personal chef and your agent could be emailing with them and say, hey, be here at this time. There's this party. And it's kind of, it doesn't need to be. You don't even maybe need a gig work platform, because the agent can go out and scroll Instagram in theory and find someone who's advertising that service, or Google it and find a listing of local people providing that that job and go and retain their services directly. Interesting. I believe AI will allow for a similar shift in many areas of life. Time-consuming activities like researching decisions, planning vacations, scheduling a tutor, and more can be done by an AI agent that anyone can access. As we build new products, we have a chance to make these time-saving capabilities feel not only useful, but routine. In doing so, we can empower people to regain control of their time and attention. And I certainly feel that something that I would need to sit down 15 minutes looking for, a new studio space or something, fire off agent and come back with some interesting results. Anyway, let me tell you about Graphite.dev, code review for the age of AI. Graphite helps teams on GitHub ship higher quality software faster. Get started for free, Graphite.dev. Last one, support. For many people, the biggest barriers to progress aren't lack of access or opportunity, but self-doubt, isolation, and burnout. Sometimes what's most empowering is support, someone or something that can help us reflect, feel seen, or simply move forward with clarity and confidence. My business coach, Katya, has been transformative in my career. I've joked with her over the years that everyone needs a Katya in their pocket. Personalized coaching has obviously been a privilege reserved for a few, but now with ChatGPT, it can be available to many. This is something I have not used. This feels like we're getting further out on the curve of defining what the product is. Like knowledge retrieval is like so concrete, generate an image, very concrete. Now support is much more of an amorphous product, and there's some companies out there that are doing it right now. It's not a drop-in replacement, and there's much more to define about what this product looks like or how people will actually use this.
Yeah, it's very general. There's going to be vertical specific companionship products, right? We've seen this. What's the founder that we had on? The Replica was one of the original ones, started like a decade ago.
Yeah.
Grok Heavy 4 has their own
There's also
specific iteration, but then this is also, to be clear, the area of greatest concern, right? Where it's very clear. If you have a business coach who's telling you, John, you got this, you're incredible, you're built different. That's great, but then when you tell them that you've discovered, how to break the, space-time continuum, and they go, yeah, you're actually right.
Hit
right,
Sand
John.
Hill Road right now.
You're right.
You're good.
You're absolutely right. You
Call
did
up
figure
the
this out.
ones.
And so I think they need to figure out the guardrails for this category, and I'm sure that's top of mind for everybody at the company right now.
Yeah, for sure. AI coaches, on the other hand, can be available throughout every day. She says this isn't about replacing human connection, but filling a gap that often goes unfilled. Many people don't feel comfortable opening up to family or friends, and most people don't have access to a therapist or coach they can call regularly. Even people who do have access often spend an hour a week or less with these professionals. At the core of philosophy and religion is the idea of self-knowledge. To become who we want to be, we have to understand who we are. So very interesting. Apple and F1. That's the story that we're talking about today. We've talked about this before. So F1, fantastic race series. We're big fans. But the actual streaming rights to the races has been kind of hotly debated. There was an article in the Journal a while back that they were going to ESPN saying, hey, we want something like $80 million. And ESPN was like, I don't know if that's worth it. And we were going back and forth.
And they wanted something like 200.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They wanted a lot. And so the stack of content to go through is growing. So we will be thinning out the
textbook.
We will be thinning out the guest lineup in the future. But for today, we're going through. Let's kick it off with Ben Thompson. He had some good analysis here and has some details from reporting in The Athletic, which is a New York Times property. Formula One is trending towards choosing Apple for its United States broadcasting rights for 2026 onwards. The technology company's bid being in the $120 to $150 million range.
Market clearing order inbound.
That is a market clearing order. Probably will clear. ESPN has held the rights since 2018, but its current deal is up at the end of the year. The sports media giant's exclusivity negotiation period expired before February 2025, leading to interest from other broadcasters,
including Netflix and TBPN.
Yes, we would love
We decided to sit it out.
ESPN has remained in the mix for U.S. broadcasting rights, though its bid is lower. Apparently, ESPN's offer is in the $90 million per year range.
Which is still wild because this is the U.S. broadcasting rights.
Yep.
And I believe in 2024, Formula One had around 1 million total viewers.
1.3 million viewers on average per race.
Yep.
But Ben Thompson puts it in a different perspective. He says F1, on the other hand, has a meaningful audience versus MLS, which was averaging around 200,000 viewers per year on linear TV before the Apple deal, and that wasn't growing. So this is 6 times as big as MLS.
Yep.
Again, I think there's more games than races, so it's not exactly apple to apple. But every race, but one has seen a year-over-year increase in viewership. So F1's getting more popular. A lot of that's driven by Drive to Survive. And this is the crazy thing: given when races are televised, usually early Sunday morning, and the fact that they aren't promoted by ESPN in any meaningful sense, so it's not like you're getting the Pat McAfee show talking about, oh, you got to tune in, and there's a ton of coverage on ESPN throughout the week. They just kind of show up Sunday morning, and people turn on the TV and they schedule it. And so you can. He says
I always
you can
like
make
the
case.
timing because any parents out there, you're certainly not sleeping in on the weekends. The kids wake up.
Yep.
And I find it's some nice background noise or viewing in those early hours.
For sure. And so he says you can make the case that F1 makes its own audience, which by extension means they will be able to pull people to a streaming service. Basically, F1 fans are strong enough that they'll go search it out. And when I was really getting into F1 after getting into Drive to Survive, I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to subscribe to F1, the app, and like jump through all these hoops.
That's on your phone.
And it was it's like as many hoops as UFC, but people still do it.
Yeah.
And there's still a big debate. But anyway.
And I think Netflix had done the analysis and realized that all of the potential viewers of F1 were basically already subscribed to Netflix.
Yep.
And so it was a more difficult kind of equation to make work than someone like an Apple TV potentially that could potentially drive
I
new
think someone called it like a
subscribers.
streaming backwater or something like that in here. We'll dig into it. But somebody had some not nice things to say about Apple TV. Although I'm a subscriber and I think it's nice. So he says, what makes, this is Ben Thompson writing in Stratechery, what makes this all work is the fact that for F1 races are at the bottom of the funnel in terms of fan engagement. F1, at least in the US, has by and large grown its audience via Netflix's Drive to Survive. Netflix pays F1 a pittance for rights, apparently single-digit millions for that. But it's okay for F1 because the way they ultimately make money is by converting Netflix viewers into race fans. So if you're F1, you see that as a marketing channel, honestly.
Well, yeah, and F1 has sponsors at the sort of league level and also the individual teams. All of those sponsors are getting more viewership and engagement through F1.
Yeah.
So it's sort of added value to them, and they don't have to pay. They're actually making money on. I mean,
I wonder
not
if
a
the sponsors
super consequential.
I wonder.
amount.
I mean, of course, the sponsorships are like such like 360 deals that it's like, you know, car livery and also a whole bunch of other, you know, advertising assets. But I wonder if they broke out. Okay, how much lift, how much benefit, how many impressions are we getting from Drive to Survive? Would that be, when you total up all the value add to all the different advertisers from being in Drive to Survive and being seen by people on Netflix, how much would that be more than the couple $1 million that Netflix pays for the rights? It might be. Like there's a lot of people that see ads that are for specific F1 sponsors.
I've seen Saudi
Drive to Survive.
Aramco like hundreds of times
During
while
Drive to
watching
Survive.
Drive to Survive.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like pretty valuable ad space. So interesting deal that kind of works both ways and everyone makes money. Anyway, making that model work, however, means actually monetizing the races, which means that it's actually quite logical to go with the company willing to pay $30 to $60 million more for those rights. You have to capture value somewhere in the funnel. Moreover, you can make the case that many F1 fans aren't necessarily ESPN subscribers. And this is where it gets interesting, because the cable bundle is shrinking, and the F1 did this global fan survey, so it's their data. So Ben Thompson's kind of taking it with a grain of salt, but this is from the F1 global fan survey. They conducted a study every 4 years to track how fan engagement is evolving across the sport. They got 100,000 responses from self-identified, highly engaged fans in 186 countries. That's basically all of them. The findings offer a detailed snapshot of the modern fan mindset and show that Formula One is increasingly attracting new, younger, and more female audience with growth in markets such as the United States. Gen Z is helping shape the rhythm of the modern fandom, engaging with the sport more frequently and on a deeper emotional level. Female fans now account for 3 in 4 new fans.
Interesting.
I would not have predicted that. That's very, very interesting.
Well, the drivers are often Chads, and I can imagine
that's what's driving it.
That could be part of the factor.
Yeah, it's also interesting that there are no female drivers on the grid right now. There was Danica Patrick in the NASCAR series for a while, but somehow it's breaking through. Maybe it's through Drive to Survive being more accessible on Netflix, more storylines pulling people in, and they're just going down that funnel. I don't know.
Well, there's also the WAG industrial complex surrounding F1 that is an aspirational lifestyle.
Maybe they should do a spin-off of Drive to Survive. Don't they do that with NBA? Isn't there a show about like WAGs or something like that?
Maybe.
I mean, that's kind of informally what the
I could see that.
Housewives series is, right? Maybe they should do that. With the largest country share of respondents, fans in the U.S. continue to stand out for their growth, youth, and digital fluency. They over-index on content engagement, sponsor responsiveness, and daily touchpoints, signaling a market where fandom is evolving rapidly and is commercially
Saudi
primed.
Aramco is like, why? We seem to be getting a lot of female Zoomers
buying oil.
following our content on Instagram. They seem to be really into this. Yeah. What's happening?
Maybe, I don't know. So basically, Ben Thompson's conclusion from this survey is what are you talking about when you're talking about a younger, more female focused audience? Those don't sound like ESPN subscribers. Those actually sound like Apple TV subscribers or potential Apple TV subscribers. Certainly cord cutters, certainly people who are not going to buy a big cable package and get on ESPN2 and Red Zone and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's typically the Gen X male, the maybe older millennial male that probably dominates the ESPN audience. That's really interesting. Apple kind of has an edge where they can build out a service for some of these more lifestyle oriented sports, some of these alternative, you could imagine them doing things in tennis over time, because maybe that's a different audience than like the hardcore ESPN Red Zone subscriber. Yeah. So He says, I could definitely envision a scenario where F1 not only doesn't suffer from being on a streaming service instead of ESPN, but it actually grows further. So this is an interesting bull case. Given Apple TV's lower price point relative to a standalone ESPN streaming service, much less a cable bundle. What is clear is that this deal certainly makes a lot of sense for Apple than the MLS deal did. If the company can capture all 1.3 million of those current viewers and they are incremental to current Apple TV subscribers, then the company will break even on this deal. Those are very generous assumptions, of course, but not nearly as generous as whatever assumptions drove the company to spend double the money on a sport no one watches, which is MLS. So he's taking shots at MLS because there was an interesting quote in here from something else. What was this? It was from The Athletic, again, talking about the North American Soccer League general managers. One common theme from general managers, the Apple deal, which is Apple's deal to air MLS, is proving to be too much of a barrier for new fans.
They want the content to be completely free?
New fans just don't want it on Apple, apparently, or the GMs don't want to be limited to the Apple audience, apparently. They want to be on ESPN or something.
Oh, okay.
Apparently. So the GMs say, hey, if we want this to grow, we're the general managers of a bunch of different MLS teams. If we want to grow soccer in America and grow MLS, change the format, change the salary cap.
Why don't they just pivot to football or basketball or baseball if they want?
Yeah, what's wrong with just throwing around a pigskin? Yeah, change the format. Just turn it into American football.
I have to say, football is one of the best things you can buy under $50.
For sure.
Period.
For sure.
That's non-food. I mean, the value you can get out of a pigskin is
Hours
absolutely
of fun.
insane.
Hours of
the
fun.
return on pigskin.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He says, allow us to bring more attractive players. I didn't realize that MLS had a salary cap because I thought they were signing like massive deals with these like legacy famous
Who is
players.
the player that went to Galaxy?
Isn't it Messi or something?
Yeah.
Is that right? I don't know. Well, this is bad because I don't know
Out of
anything
our
about
territory.
sports. But there was someone who went to Miami. There was someone who went to the LA Galaxy. I don't know. Anyway, this GM says,
Yeah, so Messi plays for Inter Miami.
Yep, and it's a huge deal. It's like AI researcher money. Remember? That's what we were how we were comping it. And the GM said, but they also have to end the deal with Apple. It's bad for the
so
fans.
David Beckham
played
that's right. In the MLS, and then you have Zlatan Ibrahimovic as well. So they'll pull in some superstars. But usually towards the end of their runs. So
the GMs of the North American Soccer League MLS, they say, I think we have to be on more linear outlets. We have to be on ABC, NBC, Fox, or more regularly because I think a lot more people watched our games when we were in that space. I think Apple and the whole streaming thing is really innovative, but it's probably where things will be going, but I don't think MLS is the leader of that. I don't think enough has been put behind the subscription model. You're in a different league when you're a different league when you're a subscription-based league. I don't think the effort has been put in like it should be. It's like selling tickets. You need people out there selling. You can't just hope that people are going to sign up. And so, interesting. The risk for F1 is that the series, which has massive growth, is going to conscript itself to the streaming backwaters, says Ben Thompson, just so it can make a few more bucks in the meantime. So that's the risk, is that F1 goes and gets stuck in subscription land and no one can just turn on the TV and see it, and the 1.3 million fans don't actually migrate over and they say, I'll just catch the highlights or I'll just watch Drive to Survive on Netflix instead of going setting up a new subscription. But if it's F1 truly does have a younger audience, does have a more female audience, that might be what gets them to turn on Apple TV streaming, at least.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I still get so confused by all the different cable plans. I watch F1 on YouTube TV, which I guess is through ESPN. It's like, I guess that will go away, and then I would have to subscribe to Apple, so they would get a net new. I actually don't subscribe to Apple TV.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay.
Not for any reason. I never want to go through I just don't watch a lot of television.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go through the hassle of like signing up for a new service.
Yeah. I feel like recently I got a new iPhone and it just like came with Apple TV Plus, and I just like clicked the button and didn't unsubscribe, and then I've been on that for a while. So let's go over to Ben Thompson talking about Google earnings. he has said, I've repeatedly laid out the theoretical case for why AI is potentially disruptive to Google. And we asked him about this when he came on the show. My question was like, is there a world where revenue and profit from generative AI products is actually not as counterpositioned against Google, in the sense that, like, if they had launched the Gemini app first and become the ChatGPT, they'd probably be seeing a drop in search volume, but then also seeing revenue spike from an even more popular Gemini that's monetizing even better. And was it a question of them just like not being able to take that pill, or was it more about like the risk and PR nervousness than
the thing that Ben
actual
said that
structural?
stood out to the most to me, and I'll probably butcher it a little bit, but he effectively was saying, like, it's really hard for companies to change who they are.
Yeah.
And when you look at Google's mission statement to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, that is so deeply aligned with AI.
Yep.
It's like, what does ChatGPT do? Like, organizes information and makes it useful, right? Agents like ChatGPT agent is making that information useful.
Yep.
And so it just feels like, again, like generative AI is like deeply aligned with the core mission. And so it's easy to see, them continuing to win here.
Yeah, I think the problem is like the disruption comes when you create a product that is not as good, but the financials are structurally different. So the idea of like, if AI disrupts like a law firm, you look at this product, or even like, I don't know, what's the classic example of disruption that people go through? I don't know, but like this idea of like,
the big thing was innovator's dilemma, right?
Yeah, in the innovator's dilemma, the example is like a new product comes to market that does something 90% as well, and so it's like unacceptable to the people that are buying the current product, but then over time it gets better and better and better until it replaces the current product. And so there is a world where if they had just changed the Google search bar to just be like, this is just an LLM now, people would have been really, really disappointed with that shift, and they would have been like, I want to go back, and ripping that Band-Aid off to the tune of $300 billion a year in search revenue would be really painful. So they had to take a more iterative, like stepwise improvements, but it seems like they're doing well. And Ben Thompson is kind of echoing this. He says, once again, and however, I have to come to Google's defense. All available metrics suggest that the company is doing quite well. Indeed, I would go further. You can make the case that the company's biggest mistake is not going harder. And so they flipped the switch on cloud. Their infrastructure spending is through the roof, as we mentioned. So after the Q4 2024 earnings and their announcement that they were spending $75 billion on CapEx, then Google Cloud's revenue numbers disappointed, but this was because they didn't have enough GPUs and they were actually constrained. So they missed on top line, like they didn't bring in enough revenue, but their margins actually improved. And so what that means is that there was so much demand that they had pricing power, and they could say, no, we're not giving you any discounts, because everyone wants these GPUs right now, or the TPUs. They want our infrastructure, so we don't need to sell them at a discount. And so their margins were really good. And what that revealed was that they were capacity constrained, and that justifies the bigger CapEx spend that they're going into right now.
And Google is still the Polymarket which company has the best AI model end of 2025. So December 31st, there's been 1.5 million of volume, and Google is still sitting comfortably at 46% chance of being at the top of LM Arena at the end of the year.
Yeah, this is such a crazy supply constraint metric. So the Google CFO, Anat Ashkenazi, said on the earnings call, in cloud, as I mentioned, the demand for our products is high, as evidenced by the continued revenue growth and the cloud backlog. Guess how big their cloud backlog is? Just the demand for Google Cloud products that they can't fulfill because they haven't built the data centers. But if they had more capacity, they think that they could deliver this. $106 billion. That is so much money. That is
great. Honestly, more businesses should try to put themselves in the position where they have 160 billion of demand that they can't
106 billion.
We try to not give business advice because it's so
it's fraud.
Well, it's just like every business is different. Every founder is different. But in general, if you can develop a demand.
It's a good call for like a YC
backlog.
company. Like if you go on stage at demo day and you say like, yeah, we have LOIs and we have some demand backlog.
We have
to the tune of
$106 of demand that we're unable. There was actually a YC company yesterday or 2 days ago that was getting a little bit roasted because they were like, they launched a product and they were like, wow, today was insane. Our servers went down immediately. Yeah. And you could see the user chart, and they had like 250 users. And so people are like, "Wait, like your product went down on 250 users?"
That's ridiculous.
So, anyways, but happy for their success.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you about Figma. Think bigger, build faster. Figma helps design and development teams build great products together. You can get started for free at Figma.com. And so so he keeps going into the CapEx.
Wait, before we do that, Figma Make is generally available today. Yeah. You can go to figma.com/make and just start building various products. Tyler has been using Figma Make to make a product that we'll be releasing very soon.
Very excited for that. We will announce that soon. From the earnings call, given the strong demand for our cloud products and services, we now expect to invest $85 billion in CapEx from 2025, up from a previous estimate of $75 billion, just a $10 billion incremental investment. Absolutely massive. Our updated outlook reflects additional investment in servers, the timing of delivery of servers, and an acceleration of the pace of data center construction, primarily to meet cloud customer demand. The challenge, Pichai cautioned in an answer to an analyst question, is that it takes a while for these investments to come on board. So, of course, the risk is like you overbuild, but there's certainly no evidence of that given the massive backlog. So the other interesting thing that Ben dips his toe into. So Ben Thompson at Stratechery famously does not get caught up in trade deals and non-CEO employee shifts.
They're below his line.
They are below his line. They're below his line. But he had to chime in on the CFO change that happened at Google. So he says, I'm always hesitant to delve too much. I like that he's throwing in a delve. You know it's not written by AI.
Bait.
But he's baiting. Yeah,
he's baiting
for
people.
Sure.
He's like, how dare you accuse?
Yeah.
He's like, you can go back and look at how many times I've used delve a million times.
I created delve. I coined that word.
I love that there's a YC company called Delve as well. That's doing well.
So he says, but it's interesting that the earnings call was Ruth Porat's last one as CFO. Porat earned a lot of plaudits for getting Google's spending under control in the late 2010s. But what seems clear in retrospect is that $52.5 billion that Google spent on CapEx in 2024 was too little. And so he's kind of like, noodling on this idea that maybe the CFO was too cautious going into an AI boom.
You could lose your job over that.
Maybe Ruth Porat was calling top signals like us. It looks terrible. Fortunately, we don't lose our job when we
There's nothing wrong with calling top signals.
There's something wrong with underinvesting.
You get in hot water if you're specifically calling the top.
Yes.
Trying to identify top signals. Yes. Is more of a metagame.
Yeah. So basically, Google, it does seem like Google underinvested in CapEx in 2024 based on demand, wound up with that massive backlog, missed on top line, couldn't make enough money, couldn't generate enough revenue, had higher margins, that's great, but didn't deliver on the cloud side on the actual scale. So Ashkenazi's calls, meanwhile, have repeatedly reiterated that Google Cloud is particularly supply constrained. They don't have enough servers, and the company has now surprised investors twice in 6 months with the scale of its CapEx plans. Let's go. Says this, in my opinion, is incredibly bullish for Google. Go back to the disruption lens, which we were kind of noodling on earlier. The exact avenue from which you would expect management resistance to a disruptive innovation to flow is the CFO office. Like the CFO should be resistant to disruptive innovation. And when you look at the history of companies that got disrupted, the CFO is saying, we have a good business. Let's just keep printing cash. Like this new thing, let's not worry about it. Let's not go in.
Nokia CFO.
Exactly.
Are you guys seeing the numbers?
Yeah. But like for a lot of those companies that got disrupted, it's like they were printing cash, high dividends for decades, even after the disruption happened. The iPhone comes out. And in order to actually do something to compete. They have to completely go into startup mode. They have to burn a ton of cash, cut their dividend, stop stockpiling cash, issue debt, do a ton, raise more equity maybe. Like they have to become a new product development company, and it would be very, very difficult usually. But
BlackBerry's annual revenue in 2005, 1.9 billion.
They completely pivoted.
BlackBerry's annual revenue in 2024, 580 million.
It's a cybersecurity company now. They bought a couple cybersecurity assets while they were valuable, while they were while the stock was up, and then eventually they wound down the phone business and just kind of became a cybersecurity company because obviously they had a ton of enterprise contracts because BlackBerrys were sold into like large enterprises as work phones. Very few people had BlackBerrys as like everyday phones, but so they had all those. They had like solid sales team, solid connections, bought a new asset, and were able to continue the business, even though obviously it's not the company that it once was. Ben Thompson goes on to say there does seem to be a major shift in mindset in terms of the company's willingness to lean into AI, particularly for a segment, Google Cloud, that even in the best case scenarios is significantly lower margin than the company's core business. What's interesting about that margin point, however, is that it too is another reason to be bullish on Google's prospects. Google is the only company, we talked about the TPU thing, they're the only company with an at-scale ASIC alternative to NVIDIA's GPUs, which should give them a meaningful cost advantage. To that end, to the extent that cloud compute
at
becomes
scale to a
commoditized.
point where they're going to be able to support SSI,
which is crazy,
not just their own needs.
And then there's also another question in here.
The dynamic that's interesting is like OpenAI needs to massively scale infrastructure, and as we covered earlier this week, commit to spending tens of billions of dollars with Oracle.
Yep.
And their revenue today doesn't support that. Obviously, their growth trajectory is absolutely insane. But OpenAI being in a position where they are competing head-on with Google for this very, very critical consumer use case, search, knowledge retrieval, and ultimately usefulness, it is a extremely tough position for OpenAI to be in.
Yeah. So the other hyperscalers are working on ASICs that are alternative to NVIDIA GPUs, but they all seem to be following the similar path, trying to get line time at TSMC, not fully at scale. Then there's also the question, I think a lot of people's mind is like, is this the end of history? Is there something that's coming down the pipe that could disrupt the NVIDIA GPU monopoly, the CUDA ecosystem, or even the Google TPU? And SemiAnalysis has a funny meme here, way down in the stack, about the next generation of chips that have been pitched from startups like Etched and a few others. So SemiAnalysis says, although baking transformers into silicon may sound cool, it's mostly just a marketing slogan. 90% of transformers flops are just GEMMs and 256 by 256 or 128 by 128 systolic arrays in TPU and in TPU Trainium are already optimized for these. Even modern GPUs with tensor cores are optimized well for GEMMs. Even if you bake transformers into silicon, aka just create a giant systolic array, most of your die area will still be taken up with SRAM cells, that's the memory, and you will still face the memory wall since your HBM memory bandwidth will be the same as GPUs, TPUs, and Trainium. And so the meme is transformers are just 90% matmoles. George Hotz had a similar analysis or take, just saying that if you look at the actual energy use of GPUs right now, there isn't that much opportunity to squeeze more value out of them. They're pretty efficient, and most of the energy that goes into these very, very specific math calculations that are already pretty optimized. We did hear from someone something about this is from Martin Scully, that Jane Street, or was it Jane Street? One of the high frequency trading firms figured out how to run one of those very, very basic matmul calculations on a GPU more efficiently, and I guess kind of open sourced it or something, or got out into the research world. So it doesn't feel like at this moment. I still think that there's a interesting bull case for the Etched crew in some ways, in some niches or something, some specific models. But it doesn't seem like there's some new disruptive chip architecture that's going to come out and obviate the need for both NVIDIA GPUs and Google TPUs. And so Google's very well positioned, as Ben Thompson is writing. So he says this should give them their position that they have an at-scale ASIC alternative to NVIDIA GPUs, should give them a meaningful cost advantage. To that end, to the extent that cloud compute becomes commoditized is the extent to which Google actually has a margin advantage. Because if all of the clouds are commoditized, but all of them are on NVIDIA, and then Google is taking the NVIDIA margin basically from their TPU, they should be in a very good spot. This is, to be sure, a bit weird. Parat gained those plaudits, because there was so much waste in Google to cut, which was downstream of the company's amazing monopoly in margins in search, which hardly seems like the recipe for a structural cost advantage. But here we are.
Sundar's going to tell every employee, we're cutting your daily massage allowance from 3 massages down to 1. We're deeply sorry, but we need to get fit.
Got to get fit. And you got to get on Vanta. Automate compliance, manage risk, improve trust continuously. Vanta's trust management platform takes the manual work out of your security and compliance process and replaces it with continuous automation, whether you're pursuing your first framework or managing a complex program.
It was great talking with Christina yesterday. She's an absolute dog.
Boardroom general.
The boardroom general.
She put the KPIs in orbit.
She really has.
She really has. Did you see that? Did you see that chart that Reed shared?
Yeah,
Andrew
this
Reed?
chart, she says,
it's just the
Andrew
smoothest
said
curve
Christina
ever.
often talks about stacking rice on the chessboard.
Yeah.
And I didn't see this until after the show, but I was like, it seems like you guys are just chopping wood. Like every day, just out there, like
that's what it is.
putting in the work.
Just, a couple percent here, just very consistent growth, very smooth growth curve into a monster of a business. So congrats to everyone over at Vanta on the new round. And we will go back to Google. So more broadly, the way in which Google seems to have flipped the switch in terms of going all in on AI, along with Meta's spending on AI talent, really does strongly suggest that AI, in the end, is a sustaining technology that favors the incumbents most of all. Both see a line of sight to new revenue streams, and critically, both can fund AI from profits, not speculative investment or debt. And of course, both have distribution, including search. Sometimes the empire strikes back. I love that. So there were other takes from search. You'll have to subscribe to Searchechery to get the full analysis. You got to go and subscribe to Searchechery. If you're not subscribed, what are you doing? But the interesting takeaway from search is that it seems like Google's being a little squishy about, hey, we don't want to report certain KPIs anymore. So they used to report paid clicks, and now the chief business officer, Philip Schindler, is saying, and on your paid click question, look, to be very clear, I think we said this before, we manage the business to drive great outcomes for our users and attractive ROI for our advertisers. We actually don't manage to pay clicks or CPC targets, which is fair and good, but it's funny because Ben Thompson's like, but I want that data. That would be helpful to me.
I mean, when a business has a metric that they tell you is important for a long time, and then they suddenly tell you it's not important.
Don't worry about
it.
But it does make sense. They're a huge business. They've moved on to bigger and like higher levels of abstraction.
Just look at the growth in tokens.
Yeah. But
don't worry about anything else.
What he says is that there are product changes and policy changes that actually drive better monetization, but at the expense of paid clicks, and that's probably AI searches and stuff like that. You'll see in the 10Q paid clicks were up 4% year on year, but a number of factors affecting these metrics from quarter to quarter, such as advertiser spending, product changes, policy changes, user engagement. So it's really important when it comes to pay clicks and CPC to avoid drawing overly broad conclusions solely based on these metrics. Don't put me in the truth zone on this, he says. So Ben Thompson, this is exactly what you said. I don't even think you pre-read this, but you basically have Ben Thompson working in your head because
this is what I said when Ben Thompson came on the show. I was like, I think your way of thinking has been so ingrained into my mind that I think that I have an original thought, and you've already thought it.
Okay, so this is what he says, and it's literally what you just said.
It
says, the more that management tells me not to pay attention to paid click rates, the more I want to pay attention, which is exactly what you just said. Regardless, once again, the fact that pay clicks were up 4% and search revenue was up 12% makes it clear that search growth is primarily being driven by higher prices. And so the actual number of clicks is up 4%, but revenue's up 12%. That means that they're monetizing each click better. But people are obviously going to read into, paid clicks aren't growing that fast. Like the actual pie isn't growing that fast. They're just getting it's basically like, once Instagram Reels is popular, everyone's watching it, then you just got to put more ads in the feed. right? And that's that seems like what they're doing, and that's what's driving search revenue up 12%. AI overviews is another question. This is a funny one where basically the chief business officer, Philip Schindler at Google, says basically says that AI overviews are monetizing as well as other Google searches. And Ben Thompson says, given the fact that the vast majority of Google searches don't monetize at all because people just click on a link,
that's what I was about to
monetize.
say. Oftentimes, if you're searching for information, you can have very low purchase intent. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
so,
how many times a day do I search for a specific fact?
Yep.
And never would have. You could show me the best ad in the world, and I wouldn't click through because I'm just looking for a fact.
Yep. So if you're looking for something like Hulk Hogan's age, that's not a purchase intent. If that comes from an AI overview, or it comes from how they used to have those like knowledge boxes, or it would pull from Wikipedia, or if you click on Wikipedia, none of that is making Google any money. So it really doesn't matter the UI or the actual underlying technology to get you that answer. And then Gemini is on absolute tear. Really remarkable. How many monthly active users do you think the Gemini app has? These are MAUs, not DAUs.
On the mobile app, web
Gemini app
combined?
Yeah. I think this is probably across mobile, web, and desktop, but I would assume mobile.
70 million?
450 million.
Oof.
Big, right? And
that's
doubled.
signed, I mean, they kind of get it's kind of they have the cheat code because everybody already has a Google account, so they're signed in.
Yep.
But in term, I don't know.
They're monthly. And what we know from semi-analysis is that they're not taking share of queries that much, but 450 million downloads on an app and monthly active users is pretty high. And so if there's a world where Google can build a business around, if they can bring in ads faster and keep the Gemini app cheaper and offer better products, and like you get deep research, you get agent, you get the $200 tier, the ad-free, if OpenAI and ChatGPT has a $200 tier that's ad-free, and then Google's giving you the same product and the same experience, but with ads for free, like that feels like an Android iOS battle going on. That feels like something that could actually be pretty sustainable and kind of drive this like little bit of a duopoly. I don't know. We'll have to see how it goes. But daily requests grew over 50% from Q1 to Q2. And I think everyone is pretty surprised by that. And I was also surprised when I went and pulled up the Gemini app. When I went to go download it, the number of 5-star reviews is like hundreds of thousands. And I was like, okay, this is very serious. And that reflects the actual number that they shared, 450 million monthly active users. So still a lot of work to be done. I was very frustrated when I went to go get VO3. I got the Gemini app and they were advertising VO, but I couldn't access it.
Is Gemini
frustrations,
a default in Android yet?
I don't know. I imagine that it has to be pre-installed in the next round of Android phones that go out. Why would you not want that pre-installed and there? But I would be surprised if that's what's driving it, because I mean, how many Samsung Galaxies have they sold in the last quarter? Probably not 200 million, right? I doubt that that's what's driving the growth. But maybe that might be an interesting thing. How many of them are pre-installs, preloads? But even then, you have to open it to become an MAU. Yeah. But yeah, maybe they're testing. Maybe people will churn and go back to OpenAI and ChatGPT.
Android users have had access to Google Assistant for a long time.
Yep.
That's getting phased out. It's just going to be Gemini.
Yep. Intel now expects to have 75,000 employees at year end, down from 116,500 in June of 2024. That's basically 1 year ago. That's a massive cut. NVIDIA is on the other side of the trade. NVIDIA CEO said they now have 42,000 employees yesterday, up from 36,000 in January of 2025. Massive shifts. It's crazy to think about the market cap per employee difference there. Yeah. It's pretty remarkable.
Drastic.
If you're cutting costs, you got to get on Ramp. Time is money. Save both. Easy to use corporate cards, bill payments, accounting, and a whole lot more all in one place. So the news is that
Intel has a Ramp problem.
Yeah, they really should get on Ramp. Lip Bhutan, I know you're listening. You should get on Ramp, Lip Bhutan. So this is from the Wall Street Journal, the business and finance section. Intel is going to lay off 15% of their workforce. Chip giant stands at a strategic crossroads. The CEO warns no more blank checks. Intel detailed dramatic steps to revive its sagging fortunes, outlining layoffs for 15% of its workforce and scrapping plans to spend tens of billions of dollars on new chip facilities in Europe. Ooh, bearish for Europe. I didn't realize that was going on. The chip-making giant said Thursday it would refocus its strategy on the highly competitive market for AI chips, regaining market share in personal computer processors, and developing its advanced 14A technology to sell to large customers. It's like, okay, we're gonna narrow down. We're just gonna do 3 incredibly difficult things. We're gonna compete in the most aggressive AI chip market, where we're not just competing with NVIDIA, but also the TPU from Google, all the upstarts, Grok, Cerebras, all these different companies. So we're going to go from 0 to 1 there. And then we're also going to turn around our personal computer processing market.
Bold.
Intel, which has long dominated the business of making chips for laptops and desktop computers, fell far behind competitors like NVIDIA, AMD, and TSMC after it failed to anticipate the surge in demand for the powerful chips fueling the artificial intelligence boom. Lip-Bu Tan, the new CEO of Intel, after Pat Gelsinger stepped down about a year ago, I believe, said there are no more blank checks, he wrote in a memo. Every investment must make economic sense. Love to hear that. Exactly what you want to hear from
nominative determinism of Lip-Bu Tan? Hate to put you on the spot.
Hitting the beach, getting a tan? I like that. You know,
I can see it.
Maybe if Intel doesn't work out, he can get into cosmetics. It's like get a tan with this tanning oil, get some lip balm tan.
Yeah, there's something called lip blushing, where I think it's like a mild tattoo. Okay. So maybe if this whole semi thing doesn't work out, he could get into the lip blushing franchise game.
Yep, I agree. Revenue in the June quarter was roughly flat at $12.9 billion, beating Wall Street's expectations. The quarterly loss, though, widened to $2.9 billion for the quarter from a $1.6 billion loss in the year earlier period. The results represent the company's 6th consecutive quarterly loss, extending its longest streak in 35 years. It's got to suck to be in a position where computers are doing incredibly cool things. AI is magic. We passed the Turing test and you're not a beneficiary. You're losing money. And it's because of a bet on, the server and these large scale CPUs and not getting into GPUs and then missing mobile. There's a whole bunch of things that went into it. So sales in Intel's PC chip division, the company's largest segment, fell 3% from the year earlier period. I remember about a decade ago, I built a new, massive PC rig to do CGI rendering on it.
Sure.
Intel was,
as
John
one does. You weren't building it as a gaming rig?
I did use it for a gaming rig.
That's John's vice. John's vice. He said,
"There's market research. I need to understand what the gaming market's going. I need to understand the future of VR."
To your credit, I think you beat your video game addiction.
I did. I haven't played in years, and so it's an interesting time for Intel. I have some more information here.
Do you remember 6 months ago there was the rumors floating around that Elon was a potential buyer? That feels so long ago.
I was propagating those rumors.
And, and ultimately, it feels like he got the fun experience of a turnaround at Twitter. Does he want to do that again?
Yep.
I don't know.
I mean, my take when he bought Twitter and turned it into X was that it was exciting. I thought that he could make it a lot better. He has, in many ways, made it a better product. We stream on it now, and it feels like it's still a vibrant community, and there's a whole bunch of new features, good stuff, bad stuff. But overall, I think he put the company back in startup mode. They're shipping very quickly. Interesting things are happening, and he's making plays in an interesting way that I like. But at the time, I was like, okay, $44 billion. There's something like $50 billion from the CHIPS Act, maybe going to Intel and foundries in America. Run this back and marshal the same amount of capital. Let him buy Intel, turn that around. That feels like something that Elon would be uniquely equipped to turn around and would put us on a very different path if he got into semiconductor manufacturing, but it would be a huge challenge, and maybe it wasn't as important to him. So I don't know. But
I mean, only a week ago, a small company called AOL, AOL.com, was
AOL?
posting that is Elon Musk about to buy Intel. So this feels like very, Dylan Patel on January 17th saying Elon's jet is in Florida, Global Foundries jet is in Florida, Qualcomm's jet is in Florida. But ultimately, a lot of people were in Florida at that time.
Well, if your jet's flying around the world, you got to take your jet to a wander. Find your happy place.
Find your happy place.
Book a wander with inspiring views, hotel-grade amenities, dreamy beds, top-tier cleaning, and 24/7 concierge service. It's a vacation home, but better, folks. And so Dylan Patel, speaking of Dylan Patel, he actually hung out with Lip Bhutan at a conference, and he has this hilarious story where he clearly wanted to meet Lip Bhutan and spend some time with him, and everyone's coming up to Lip Bhutan asking him what the future of Intel is, and so he goes up and offers to make him tea and makes his tea for him, and they sit down and they have tea, and I think Dylan Patel really understands like tea culture and knows what makes for a good cup of tea in the same way that someone like a coffee snob knows about good coffee.
Yes.
So they have tea, and Dylan Patel's kind of picking his brain, and it just feels like Lip Bhutan's overall goal is just layoffs, reduce cost, right the ship, refocus. And so what's interesting is that we talked to Ben Thompson, and I wanted a clear narrative. I wanted something like, oh, it's obvious. Just split the foundry and the design business, split up Intel into two companies, and that will solve all the problems. But everyone seems to agree it's more complicated than that, because part of Intel's foundry business is that they design their own chips, and so they're both their customer and their supplier, and breaking those up might be more difficult. It's not a cure-all. It's not a panacea, and so it is more complicated. So there's not a super clear path forward. It's a lot of hard decisions. It's a lot of cuts to employees, and that's what we're seeing today with the 15% layoff. There will probably be more in the future as Intel continues to downsize the workforce.
Really, really rough for morale, knowing that the workforce will just be, continue to get cut into, like you said, probably not the last.
Yep. And so they are focusing on, the direct quote is, refocus strategy on the highly competitive market for AI chips, regaining market share in personal computer processors, and advancing the 14A technology. Now, the problem is that Intel is still more expensive than TSMC on a normalized per wafer basis. This comes from SemiAnalysis. So they have the Intel 3 node, the 18A, and that goes up against the N5, N3, and N2 nodes from TSMC. And across the board, Intel is more expensive on a per wafer basis. So this is at their own fabs. They're trying to catch up. They're trying to create chips that are as powerful, but the name of the game is always cost.
Yep. SemiAnalysis says the company has cost discipline in its DNA, talking about TSMC. Intel, not necessarily. This manifests in many ways. TSMC has more aggressive cost down targets and exercises its leverage on suppliers. It has not used the copy exact dogma that creates unnecessary overhead and resistance to improvements.
Hence, Intel is now moving to copy smart. Are you familiar with the copy exact strategy?
No.
So when Intel built the original fabs, what they would do is they would build this. I mean, it is a incredibly precise process.
Yep.
So you can think of lithography is basically etching. That's why that semiconductor company is called Etched, because you're etching grooves in a silicon wafer, and that's where, when you put electricity through it, it goes through a series of gates, and that's what a semiconductor is.
And that's how you create magic.
That's how you create magic. Yes, it's the spice. The Dune analogy is the most important one here. But basically, you have to etch these grooves at as small a scale as possible. So 3 nanometers. Silicon atoms are 1 nanometer. So you, in theory, cannot go smaller than 1 nanometer chip, because the space between the atoms is only 1 atom or 1 nanometer. So this is incredibly small. And so you basically have to shine like a laser or some sort of light or some sort of radiation to actually etch into the silicon to create the grooves, basically. This is very, very high level abstraction. But in order to do that, they get these mirrors from a company called Trumpf, which is unrelated to Donald Trump, and Zeiss makes these lenses, and they focus all this stuff, and this liquid tin gets dispersed, and then they bounce light off of it. It's this crazy process. The mirrors are so flat that if you like blew them up to like the size of the moon, you would not be able to see a groove even this high. It's like the most precise process in every single.
By the way, Intel missed opportunity to create the TPU. Google's obviously owning that right now, but if Intel had said we're making Trump processing,
let's SPAC it.
It's back, I mean, they're already public. So
yeah, I mean,
hard.
what's the chip that's going to be in the Trump phone? The golden American-made phone.
Yes.
Should be an Intel processor.
It really should.
Who knows?
American made.
So the semiconductor manufacturing process is so precise that apparently at TSMC, like if there's an earthquake or anything like that, they don't even need to send out a notification. Everyone just knows, go to TSMC because deal with everything, because the slight change in like the road noise or could like miscalibrate the machines. If it like rains too much, there will be extra salt in the parking lot that will get tracked in. Even when they go into the clean room, it'll get tracked in, and the small sodium particles will throw off the yield. So all of this is about yield. They'll make a ton of these wafers. There'll be small imperfections. It ruins the whole wafer. That's been a big problem with the wafer scale.
Which is why TSMC getting any yield in Arizona, despite setting up this new facility so recently,
was very
is
unexpected.
A miracle.
It's a miracle, yes. And so the copy exact
America.
dogma was, it is so hard to build a fab that manufactures semiconductors reliably at good yields that when Intel figured out how to make one fab, they said, let's make a second and let's change nothing. And so they build a building. They'd build the exact same foundation. They'd build the bathrooms would be in the same place. If there was 2 urinals in one bathroom, like there would be 2 urinals at the other one. Like everything was exactly the same,
basically extremely superstitious.
Yeah, basically, because they were like, anything that changes, like if the water flows through the pipe in the bathroom at the wrong flow rate, it might throw off the amount of molecules in the air over here and the atoms over. It's crazy precise, right? And so that worked for Intel, but it had this problem, which was that every once in a while, you do want to make an iterative change when you're building the next fab, and you do want to increase yield by maybe not copying exactly and doing things slightly differently. And so now Intel's pivoting to copy smart, only copy what's actually improvement instead of just copying everything exactly. And TSMC has never held themselves to that same standard. And so customers are likely baselining the 18A Intel node against N3, 3 nanometer nodes at TSMC, given the characteristics. But Intel will have to be aggressive on pricing if they want to compete, because they are not competitive on the actual cost of the wafer. And so they would need lower margins if they want to compete. And so you can think about Intel as having kind of like 3 feature products that people are focused on. It's Intel 3, which is their 5 nanometer class. That one is fabbed in Arizona and Oregon and Ireland. These are at Intel facilities. Intel also has the Intel 18A, which is at the same sites plus Ohio, and this is competitive with the 2 nanometer class from TSMC. And then they have the 14A, which is supposed to be 1.4 nanometer or below. This is the most cutting edge, extreme ultraviolet, really, really aggressive lithography, and this is also made in America, which is great. And these will compete with NVIDIA's Blackwells and then the next generation Blackwell successor. And so they're going head to head, but the real question will be, can they go head to head and still squeeze out a decent margin? Because the NVIDIA TSMC partnership is really, really strong. They both have good margins, and they've really optimized for cost and reliability and yield, and Intel has kind of lost a step there. And so they will probably need to get on Linear to make this work. Linear is a purpose-built tool for planning and building products, meet the system for modern software development, streamline issues, projects, and product roadmaps. So Lip Bhutan, if you need an intro to the folks over at Linear,
reach
let
out.
us know.
We will make it happen.
Reach out, and we'll figure it out.
Intel is, of course, down almost 10% today. Market is not loving much of anything happening over there right now.
Yep. So SemiAnalysis continues saying, Intel, the home of Moore's Law. Gordon Moore, of course, worked at Intel and coined Moore's Law, the idea that the number of transistors will double every few years on a silicon chip, allowing for more compute power, basically at the same price. They're evaluating if it will continue at the leading edge. This is this is what moves the stock, in my opinion, more than the 15% layoff. The layoff seems like reasonable downsizing, but deciding, hey, we're not even going to compete on the most advanced semiconductors, which is what Elon, Google, Anthropic, Sam Altman, every single company is like, give me all of the best and give me hundreds of thousands of the best. The rest of the stuff is like, okay, I'll go to anyone because I need a Wi-Fi chip in my toaster. So the quote from the 10Q, from Intel's 10Q is, however, if we are unable to secure a significant external customer and meet the important customer milestones for Intel 14A, we face the prospect that it will not be economical to develop and manufacture Intel 14A and successor leading edge nodes on a go-forward basis. In such event, we may pause or discontinue our pursuit of Intel 14A and successor nodes and various of our manufacturing expansion projects. And SemiAnalysis says, just like that, we could be talking about a TSMC monopoly and the death of American-made semiconductors forever. Very dark. Up next, we have Casey Neistat. Recently,
the
trade
YouTuber,
deal.
the creator.
He's
that
over
needs
at
no
ModRetro
introduction.
now, working on the Chromatic, which we've been playing in the studio, working on the M64. How you doing, Casey?
There he is.
Gentlemen, good to see you.
Welcome to the stream. What's new in your world? Are those the Nothing Ear ones? Give us a little review.
Oh yeah, these are fantastic. I actually
good?
had to take them off because the noise canceling on these is it's like too good, and
It's
I'm
too
at home right now, and my kids were screaming 2 seconds ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, these things are fantastic.
Yeah, we had Carl Pei on the show a week ago, and he put them down, and I was too afraid to ask, like, oh, are those for me? Like, are you going to leave those for me? I kind of want those. I need a new pair. I'll have to pick
You know
one
what
up.
it is? I'm not enough of an audiophile to know if something sounds good or not. Like
Same.
it's either good or it's not good.
Yep.
But
Same.
physical switches, like buttons you can touch,
Yeah.
I really like. And the Apple, I don't know what they're called. What are their AirPod Maxes?
Yeah.
Maybe?
AirPod Maxes.
There's no on-off switch.
Yeah.
Like I
There's
can't.
that digital crown.
I need an on-off switch, and these have that.
I like the
These are
tactile
great.
It's
feeling.
key.
Yeah,
Analog.
are you a big teenage engineering guy? It feels like kind of like that they're almost coining like a trend that's like becoming more mainstream now.
Teenage Engineering is the only company whose products I buy religiously, even though I have no idea how to use any of them.
The same thing happened to me. I bought the little keyboard. I was
art.
like, I'm a musician now. Couldn't figure out how to make a song.
I know how to use it.
I love it. It's amazing.
Looks
It's just
good
so
on a desk.
beautiful.
It's so
And
beautiful.
like someone that cares that much about the craft,
Totally.
I
Then you just
want to be
support them.
part of that.
Support them unconditionally. Yeah. So tell me about ModRetro. How'd that come together? What is the news in your world?
The ModRetro thing's really funny because my video says all this, but like I'm a big retro gamer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guilty of sometimes playing Call of Duty on my Xbox, but that doesn't work out when you got a wife and kids.
You're not
but
being guilty.
Yeah.
Every man should have an allocation of time daily for Call of Duty. Getting
It's
on
Rust.
Rust.
Yeah.
Getting on Rust with your boys.
Yeah.
I'm so close to that W, and then the door comes flying open, the children come
Kids
running
come in,
in.
yep.
It's
Yep.
challenging.
Yeah.
But I'm 44, so like apex of video games for me was like 1989, I think, getting a Game Boy the first year they came out for my
Yep.
grandmother for Christmas. And like you guys are younger than me, but before that, all we had were those like LCD games that were
Yeah.
like really janky, like the Tiger games, and they were
Yeah.
terrible. And the first time I turned on the Game Boy and like saw the Nintendo come down, I was like, holy, this is such a moment.
Yeah.
And then Nintendo 64 came out when I was in like just getting into high school as a freshman.
Yeah.
We used to sneak out of high school, get on the city bus, like the regular bus, and then drive 2 towns across and then walk a mile and a half to Toys R Us to sit in Toys R Us and play the demo of Mario 64 when that thing came out. I think it was in 94, so I was 12 or 13 years old.
Yeah.
So I love that stuff. And ModRetro, when I first learned about the Chromatic, their Game Boy, I thought it was really stupid. I didn't understand because you can get those like Chinese ones off of Amazon for $50.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine was like, no, this is great. They're doing great things. Do you want to talk to Palmer about it? And I'm a huge Palmer Luckey fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'd love to. And I don't know that I've ever been evangelized so much in my life. Like by the end of that call, he didn't just convince me, but I was like, I felt like an idiot for not seeing
Yeah.
what ModRetro was. And then
Yeah.
as I got to know Torin, who is the CEO of ModRetro, and understand the vision for the company, I was just so like overwhelmed. I was like, this is the most like beautiful vision ever. I don't understand the business of it. It makes no sense to me. But the fact that these guys have the guts to do this, like, can I be a part of it? And I think I pitched back to them what I understood the company was. And they're like, that's it. That's what we want to say. And I was like, all right, give me a job. And my job will be to figure out how to communicate that. And we'll make videos and stuff. And they're like, sure, but we're not going to pay you. And I was like, great, I'll take a business card.
That's
A
awesome.
business
And
card. Priceless.
it's been great working with it. I'm an investor in ModRetro. I have a vested interest in them succeeding, but I mean, that's not where the passion to be a part of what they're up to comes from for me.
Yeah. So many places we could go with this. This is fantastic. Yeah, do you think that there's a world? I mean, I love the handheld gaming stuff. My experience having kids was I stopped playing console games. The N64 was actually my first console ever, and but once I started having kids. Super Mario 64 for sure. GoldenEye was big head mode, golden gun. You got to do that. And then a couple other Donkey Kong, and was never really into the Mario Kart racers, but then Smash Brothers kind of took over, and that was the real competition with everyone eventually.
I think what's exciting to me is like building new consumer hardware that will still turn on and work and bring joy 20 years from now. I had the game. I have like my Game Boy Pikachu edition from growing up, and when ModRetro came out, I went and found it, and I turned it on, and it worked. Yeah, and that was like such an amazing moment for me because like I've got old iPhones laying around. I've never been like I've never been like, oh, I should turn that on. It's gonna be fun, right? Because it's like it's not evergreen. It was of the moment, and you just move on. And so I think if ModRetro can do anything, which is like make consumer hardware, which is so disposable today across all these different categories, and make it so that, you're going to get your ModRetro or your M64, this year, and then you're going to turn it on in 30 years and like, bridge generations.
Yeah. I think it's easy to sort of shit on planned obsolescence because it is real. I think of that like, my house woke up this morning at 7:30 a.m. because the refrigerator repairman finally showed up and was banging on our door at 7:30 in the morning. The dog was freaking out because our 2-year-old refrigerator doesn't work. And this is a refrigerator that has Wi-Fi.
There we go.
Let's
give it up for Wi-Fi. Everybody's
always everything.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. And when I think about that, it's like that refrigerator that we had as kids with the one big heavy aluminum door, like it just worked. It worked forever. But in order to keep selling shit, you have to keep coming out with new things. And I think that's the negative of planned obsolescence. But I think when it comes to consumer technology, there is an argument for having to keep up with the rate of innovation. Like the new phones that come out, every time you get a new phone, it does do something that your other phone didn't. So there's maybe a reason for that. But I think with that sort of tidal wave of innovation that feels faster now than it ever felt when I was young, I think we lose some great things.
Yeah.
And my understanding of ModRetro, at least what I want it to be, and I think what Palmer and what Torin also want it to be, is like, let's identify consumer electronics that people just love, like had an unbelievable relationship with. They really like the love I had for my Game Boy. I don't know that there was another thing that I owned through my adolescence that I treasured more than my Game Boy. And let's bring them back. And let's do them justice. Let's build them so they last forever. I think Palmer's quote when I was interviewing was, we don't want to build another Game Boy. We want to build the last Game Boy, like the last one that ever needs to be built. And that's the vision with M64 as well. Like you can get emulators that they kind of work, but let's build the thing that you and I had, John, when we were kids, and let's have it last forever. Yeah. And I just think there's so much romance in that. When you start digging deep, you can start to see products everywhere. And ModRetro's tiny, just a couple people working out of a small office, but like the list of products that we want to build, the list of ideas that we have is endless. And that's a really exciting thing to take on.
It's also such an interesting company because you're trying to recreate things of the past that were good products and you want to improve on them, but you need to stay true to the original product. Otherwise, what do you do? I mean, it's not to say that ModRetro couldn't one day create, novel, totally novel products, but it is like an interesting constraint and challenge. And you actually have to, it's really, in some ways it's easy because you know exactly what you need to build, but in other ways it's harder because you're taking a product that was almost perfect in its original form and still like you need to make it should be better. Otherwise, what are you doing?
Yeah, like one interesting challenge, and I'm not the right person to speak to this, so I'm not the technical guy, but to make the screen match the old Game Boy screen was an exhaustive process. So when you buy one of those handheld emulators that looks like a Game Boy, the Chinese made ones, they have fairly high pixel density screens on them. So in order for them to give the look of an old Game Boy, you're using multiple pixels to emulate a single pixel. So it's inaccurate. Yeah. And real psychopaths, I'm not one of them, but I appreciate it. Real psychopaths on Twitter have done like this super zoom into a pixel, and you realize that Mario is like jumping a half a pixel too low or a half a pixel too high within the frame because of the limitation of the screen. And Torin and Palmer's like religious obsession with matching that screen was one of the hardest things to overcome. So it was actually harder to build something that matched the quality of a product that's 20 years old than it would be to actually get the latest and greatest screen and just plug it in there.
Yeah, I remember Palmer saying something about like a couple of the companies, the screen is actually rotated 90 degrees. So instead of the scan lines coming down this way, they go across this way and then they just transform it at the last second. But it's like this bizarre thing that you would never really notice of, but it's this craftsmanship that actually I feel like, and it feels like something that's just like been lost in this, like everything's disposable, everything's junk, everything's a knockoff culture. And it feels like, I don't know, like it just feels like it's worth it to have stuff that exhibits craft and taste. And even if I'm not the one that can tell that Mario's 1 pixel too low when I do the jump, like the fact that the craftsman worked on the product means something. It's hard to put an exact like quantitative value on it, but you feel it, right?
That is the gamble that is the company. Palmer said that in my video, but he's like, maybe nobody cares about this, but weirdos like you and me, but that's enough. And I think it's like, there is an argument that's like, well, who cares if it's off by half a pixel? And if you're one of those people, totally cool. There's plenty of products in the market for you. But if you're someone who does care, if you're that weirdo that buys teenage engineering products because you just value the integrity of the product so much, you want to have it, then, there's a place in this world for companies like ModRetro.
Yeah, what do you think about like the temptation to just make like one small change? Like the Chromatic has a USB-C port on it. That's a huge upgrade, but you could easily turn this into like, well, like, we have the technology to make the M64 handheld, and then, then you're in Switch territory, and all of a sudden it's like a completely different product, right?
Look, that's ever present. Yeah. And that's the problem with sort of limitless, like when Nintendo was building this, almost 40 years ago, 35 years ago now, they were so limited by what the technology enabled them to do. Yeah. Like when you think about the Sega Game Gear, I don't know if you've ever had one of those, great product. Yeah. It's this big, but it was the first one that had really great color screen on it, and it took 6 AA batteries instead of 4 like the Game Boy, but the battery life on it was like 40 minutes.
Yeah. And do you remember the N64 like expansion pack that you'd put in to like double the memory? That was classic.
Yeah, dude, I remember that. What about the Rumble pack that shipped with Star Fox? That was like the greatest innovation ever. Funny. My mind exploded when the controller shook.
Yeah, do these like these add-ons because like they couldn't bake it all into the first product, and
and that's indicative of the limitations of what tech can do.
Totally.
And when you look at like, I don't know what Samsung announced last week, 2 weeks ago at Unpacked, and you're looking at what the limitations are today of like a folding screen that's as thick as 10 sheets of paper, you realize how far we've come. Yeah. But when you go in the other direction, where there's kind of no limits, and you're looking to make something that was made 30 years ago, the problem is like, where do you draw the line? Yeah. And I think that's it's a really interesting thing to try to overcome and confront.
Yeah, what can you teach me about the lore of in the video camera world? I was looking at a cool new music video, and it had this fisheye lens and this grain, and I was kind of digging in. And it seemed like they shot it on like a Sony skate camera with mini DV tapes. Like, this feels like something that I was looking like maybe I could buy one on eBay, but it's probably broken, and I want someone to go remake it. But then, of course, you always have like, oh, you could just like throw the filter on there in Premiere or whatever. But what are some of the iconic video cameras or just like creative tools that might be worth revisiting at some point?
Yeah, it's such an interesting examination, and your question's great because my family and I are out. We're in Massachusetts for summer vacation. And there's a lot of kids around. Like, we went and got ice cream last night. A lot of teenagers around. And a lot of these kids come up and they ask me for selfies.
Sure.
And the amount of teenagers that come up to me and ask me for selfies, and they're carrying the point and shoots that we had in like the 2010s, like before your phone camera was good enough.
Yeah.
They all carry them. No one makes that camera anymore, which means if you have one, you have an old one.
Yeah.
And every one of these kids has it. And when I ask them, because I'm curious, like, why do you carry that? They're like, I love the way it looks.
Yeah.
And I think we've reached this point, like iPhone, cell phone photography, it all looks so perfect in a way that it almost becomes artificial. Like, I think the iPhone 5 was the last iPhone where when you took a picture, it just sort of took a picture. And then after that, every time you take a picture now on any modern smartphone, it takes a picture and then runs it through an algorithm to make the picture sweeter and cleaner and sharper and better for you.
Yeah.
And I think there's sort of this yearning for something that feels more real and authentic.
It's like you look at you're at a store looking at a picture, a camera from a picture from 2010, or a camera or a picture from an iPhone today is like you're at the grocery store and there's the organic apples, and they look good, but like they're a little fucked up and they maybe like whatever, part of it's kind of rotten, and then you look over and you see the perfect apple. And like intuitively, that you're like, that it's a little bit too good to be true, that apple over there,
Yeah.
And I think,
like,
I don't know, the other thing that's real is removing the camera, like adding the camera to the phone has been one of the greatest innovations of this century, right? In many ways. But now removing the camera from the phone and being able to leave your phone and just bring a camera around is also an innovation, right? Going backwards. And I think that's the other thing that kids like, and I've found that's nice. If I'm going to the beach with my kids, it's nice to be able to bring a camera but not have my phone.
Yeah. My daughter is 10. So this is the first summer she's allowed to like walk around with her friends without a parent. And she has a flip phone. And she had this whole argument for getting an iPhone that has nothing on it but the phone and messaging. And my wife and I had this discussion, and the reason why we said, no, it has to be the flip phone is because of the camera. Like, it introduces a new level of sort of attention and why you're in purpose. And the reason why we wanted her to have a phone is simply to stay in touch with us, no other reason. But the minute you introduce this other sort of novel aspect of it, it becomes much more of a social dynamic and a social consideration in the way that you're trying to get away from that. But I think just going back to the camera things, this is such an obsession of mine. I think that we are quick to ignore or look past the relationship we have with the aesthetic that a camera yields. And when you see those pictures off of those old point and shoots, they look like something specific. Like when you were talking about that old skateboard fisheye DV look, it looks like something specific. You have a relationship with that. When we see stuff that looks like it's VHS, we think of the 80s or the 90s. And I think now there's just sort of this generic aesthetic across the board, this like crispy, flat 4K phone thing. And there's this desire to have something that it has some sense of identity attached to it. And that's why we're seeing these sort of Gen Z types, looking for older tech that reflects more of who they are, more individuality. And I think that's a trend that we're going to see continue.
Yeah, it's this generation's vinyl.
Yeah, I've joked that I want to
exactly
film.
right.
I want to film the first podcast on Panavision film or something. Just spend a fortune developing the film.
What other consumer tech categories are you excited about? We're having the founder of Wave on, and in 20 minutes, and they got like 12 million views yesterday for launching like sunglasses that will just live stream constantly.
Do you have a ratio of positive to negative mentions and those 12 million views?
I mean, I think people had a viscerally negative reaction to it.
That's my take on it as well.
The
And it
new
makes
Google
me think,
Glass.
my software development company, Beam, my startup, we started that company in 2014. And a little known aspect of that company is initially it was built around Google Glass.
No way.
And we actually, we rewrote the code, we rewrote the software that Google Glass ran, so it had a singular function, which was you push a button like this, it captures 10 seconds and immediately shares it to your feed. That's where we started with that. And I remember meeting with Google and they were excited about it. And they showed us what Google Glass 2 was going to look like. And we're like, fuck yeah. We started raising money based on that. And then a week later, they announced they were killing the entire Google Glass program. And we backed off. We're like, all right, we'll just do it on the phone now. But I think when you ask about sort of the social impact of being able to live stream all the time, or the negative reaction that we're seeing based on Wave's video they posted yesterday, I think the social dynamic is something that is often overlooked in the hardware startup world. I think of the Humane AI pin. A really good friend of mine worked for Humane, and obviously super excited about new technology. Yeah, Sam. Which parenthetically, you joke about Panavision for a podcast. Sam Sheffer has in his studio for his live streaming setup a VHS camera hardwired into his deck so he can live stream from VHS.
That's amazing.
But Sam would be around.
I tried to hire Sam, by the way. We worked with him on a project, and I was like,
he's way too hot. He's way too hot.
He's got to be solo.
He's way too big of a deal.
Yeah.
Sam's the best. But when I'd be around him and he had his AI pin on, I was always sort of looking down at that, or like thinking about what I'm saying and uncomfortable about, speaking openly to him. And I think like that's what I mean by social implications. Like, my phone is on my couch right here, but if we're sitting together and I'm holding my phone like this the whole time we're talking, you're uneasy about that.
Yeah.
And so when I think of a pair of glasses that are live streaming, or at least have the capability of live streaming the whole time, when I look at them, I'm uneasy. Yeah. And I think of this, maybe the most extreme example of this is Apple Vision Pro. Which blew my mind when I got that thing. Like, I made the most glowing video about it because it was the greatest technology I've ever used. But later that night, because I made the video the same day I got them, I'm at home using them, and my wife is like, Casey, take those fucking things off your face and pay attention to your kids. And I was like, oh, you can't wear these around other people.
Yeah.
And I was like, how did they not see that? And so I think about that because, like, we're sort of accustomed to people using their phones, and it's kind of okay. Like, we're used to this. This is not okay. Yeah. And so when I think about wearables, I think that is going to be a gigantic thing to overcome, which is
so Amazon acquired a company. It got announced this week called B, which is a brace. After everything they faced with Siri's listening to me, the B band just listens to you all day long, every single conversation, everything. And it's cool. Like I think all new tech for the most part is cool. Do I want my team to be wearing a B bracelet? Are we going to allow people to wear B bands? This might be a B-free zone, I'm
not going to have any friends that wear Bs. I don't have any friends anyways, but if you have a B, it just means like we can't hang out. Yeah. Because it makes me uncomfortable. And look, I think there's an argument. It's like, get over it. Like, you fucking Luddite. Like, this is the direction everything's headed and you're being recorded all the time anyway. Sure. But in the interim, I do think like there's a learning curve. I think that Meta's decision to put wearable glasses with a camera on them in Ray-Bans, the most common sunglasses in the world, was brilliant because we're all familiar with this pair of sunglasses. Like there was no learning curve. There was no like, what's that thing on your face? We know what it is. I think how emphatic they are about having the indicator light. There's no way you can turn it off. If you cover it, they don't record. There's some degree, at least there's
that's
a
important. Like my question for the Wave founder in 20 minutes is, should your glasses be bright red and have like a circle in the middle of your head that's flashing that says I'm recording?
Yeah, I mean, if
people can,
if someone shows up with a TV camera, like I don't feel like, oh, this is in violation of my privacy. I'm like, I know exactly what's going on. The news is here, and if I step in front of the camera, I'm on the news. Like we have a social understanding of that, and
you still might not want to be around it.
Yeah, and it might be like, actually, I'm going to turn around and walk the other way because I don't want to be seen on this camera or whatever. I don't know.
But there's an understanding there. Yeah, and look on Wave's website in the Q&A, there's a question like, is there an indicator light? And their answer is, yeah, but you can turn it off.
Mm,
And so like I don't know that I read that and it makes me a little bit queasy
yeah.
as a guy who has a camera on him, all the time. And,
Yeah.
and so much of the videos that I've made is about filming everyone in the whole world around me.
Totally.
I still think there's something honest about having that camera on your shoulder, pointing a camera at someone, versus like, the glass hole
Yeah.
movement of the, Google Glass, which like by having this on your face, everyone was uneasy around you. I think it's gonna be a big hurdle to overcome as we eventually like figure out what this hardware AI future is going to look like.
Yeah. What do you think about like airplane demos? It feels like there's so much tech where the demo is like, you'll love this on an airplane. The Apple Vision Pro is a great example. A lot of the handheld
But
devices.
it doesn't work when it's dark?
It's not too dark on planes. Like
Okay,
it does work very well on planes. But it's this like weird niche use case that feels like killer application, and then you actually get out into most of your life is not spent on airplanes usually, and so
Yeah, look, if that's the best you've got, like I travel more than most people I know, and we're still talking about, maybe double digits, maybe 10 hours a month tops.
Yeah.
So, $4,000 for a face computer that I use 10 hours a month on an airplane, which by the way, it doesn't work for me on an airplane. Like I didn't like it at all on an airplane.
Work. Okay.
No, it would work. Like
was
the
that like
technology worked
claustrophobia
perfectly. No, when you're on an airplane, you're surrounded by strangers.
Yeah.
So the idea that like I'm just gonna go like that and watch Avatar with all these people around me. I don't fly Spirit that often, but I have flown Spirit, and I know what goes on those flights. Like it just again, like
you live to tell the tale.
The social implication of it. I think if that's the best you've got, then maybe you're not thinking holistically enough about your hardware.
Yeah.
How do you spot talent? You discovered Sam. Someone in the chat was asking.
That's a great question.
If you have a framework for it.
It's a difficult question, but it's the same. I approach it the same way that I approach investments, and it's seldom the work, and it's almost always the individual. Like I think Sam is brilliant, but he's brilliant at everything that he does. He's brilliant with the work that he did at Humane. He's brilliant at the work that he did at The Verge before that. He's brilliant with his own YouTube channel. I've got a dear friend of mine, a kid named Hunter, who works in the building with me. But
Hunter's a friend, and we invest together. So
Hunter's fantastic, and like I don't know what Hunter does, because every time I have a conversation with him, he's starting some new business or some new endeavor. Like the work is almost irrelevant. It's the individual, and I think it's that mentality that you have or you don't have. Not everyone has it. I do think maybe you can get it if you don't have it, but when I see that in people, I have a tendency to sort of gravitate towards those people. And when I look around at the friends of mine that I have some sort of professional relationship with, a professional admiration for, they all have that thing, that sort of desire to see it through, whatever it may be. So, I guess the short answer is like, it's always the person, never the product.
That's great. Hunter's in the chat, by the way. He says hello.
That's great.
Another question I have is, we've been thinking about AI generated images, video, etc. is getting so good. If it stays at this pace, you're going to be able to generate characters consistently. You're already seeing this on Instagram, people just creating entire personalities for influencers in different verticals. Do you have any type of strong thesis around how that will play out, if we're going to have sort of organic influencers, regular humans, and then these synthetic?
Pros and cons.
I've been thinking about it in the context of an example is like, I don't want the AI Andrew Huberman. I want Andrew Huberman to get health advice from, because I know Andrew and I trust that he's making the best decisions and studying, and making, these recommendations and understands the weight of that. And you have like a synthetic Andrew Huberman in 5 years, doesn't care if he convinces 1 million people to do something dumb with their health, because he can just shut the account down and turn a new one on. But I'm curious how you think.
Yeah. Okay. My cynical take on it, which I believe is accurate. I'd wager that this is accurate, is that it's a tidal wave that none of us will be able to overcome. We can hold our breath for a while. It is a tidal wave. And I wish I had a better analogy, but it's a little bit like, when Toy Story came out in 1999, it was the first computer animated feature film. And it was great. I loved it. But then 5, 6 years later, there was just this, onslaught of computer animated films. And I was like, you know what? The hand drawn stuff is better. I miss that. When CGI first started getting introduced into films, I was like, no, practical is better. I like practical better. That's going to be the thing. And it's like, no, you're going to lose. And I think AI is probably the most existential version of that. I think that it's just going to be so good that it's going to become irrelevant. And old people like us might appreciate, real human things, and we might keep it alive. But the generation behind us, my children, when they see hand-drawn animation, they're like, what is this? They don't care. It means nothing to them. So I think it's just going to get so good that it really doesn't matter. And that tidal wave is going to consume everything. And I think that the progress that we've seen over the last couple of years of how good it is and how quickly it's developing is incredible. But when you look at the capabilities of, the latest Grok, the latest GPT, you look at how smart these things are. You look at the sort of conversations you can have with any of these agents, and then you look at how good the images that can be spit out by, Google's VIO or whichever AI you might be fond of. It's like they're just going to marry really, really quickly. And I think 5 or 6 years from now, we're going to start to see real sort of erosion in the space because what they're delivering is going to be so good. Like another example is like, we haven't had a #1 song yet that's completely AI generated, but it's going to come out of nowhere. It's going to be like Gangnam Style, which like the novelty of it allows us to dismiss the lack of humanity that this song has. The first AI song that's going to be a #1 hit is not going to be a Bob Dylan-esque song that comes from the soul. It's going to be something fun and outrageous, and we're going to forgive that AI made it. And then slowly it's going to start to chip away. But I think it is a losing battle. And the optimistic take on that is I think that there is going to be an extreme premium put on the humans that are able to sustain because of what they represent uniquely. Maybe another bad analogy is it's like, I love Marvel movies. They're fucking fantastic. But as far as cinema goes, like, there's an argument that said it's like, the kind of artistry that we saw in the 70s or 80s, like the apex of cinema, where it comes from one. When you think of a Tarantino movie, you think of, a truly great filmmaker with a voice. Yeah. Marvel movies are something else.
Yeah.
But they're fucking great, and we love them. We all show up to see them, and we're okay with that. And I think that's going to happen with AI, but it's going to happen at a rate of acceleration that we've never encountered before. And it's going to be so good that we're willing to forgive it. And I think it's going to leave a handful of people out there. Maybe Andrew Huberman will be one of them. I hope so. I'm a fan of his as well. But it will put an extreme premium on the sort of human voices that are distinctly human, that distinctly represents something that AI could never. Yeah. When you look at the landscape of media, a lot of that shit could be replaced by AI.
So the power law gets steeper.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense. Well,
that's like a 5-hour conversation, by the way.
Well, we'll have you back on again soon. This was awesome. And congrats on your new fake but very real role at ModRetro.
I appreciate it. Thanks for the time, guys.
Yeah.
Have fun in Massachusetts. We'll talk soon.
We'll talk soon.
Cheers. Take care.
Have a good one. Bye.